Chapter 9-10. The birth of the human race. Martial resolution struggled to calm his mind and steady himself. He began to wonder about the origins of this world. Having traveled through the 3,000 great worlds, he was unfortunately swept into a space-time turbulence while contesting for a supreme treasure. When he awoke, he found himself in this place. It had been many years since he left the celestial spirit great world, and despite having visited many realms, he was still shocked by the spiritual energy of this world. What on earth is this place? Martial resolution sensed the dense demon chi from all directions and suspected he had arrived in a domain ruled by the demon race. Among all the 3,000 great worlds, there aren't many where the demon race reigns supreme. Suddenly, a fierce wind howled, stirring dust and acrid smoke, making his vision blurry and heightening his tension. When his vision cleared, he was taken aback. He saw a four-winged yellow dragon flying overhead. Its huge body couldn't be concealed by the sea of clouds, and an overwhelming aura descended, making him feel suffocated. Even as a heaven-encompassing free immortal who had endured countless trials, martial resolution felt so insignificant in front of this dragon. The other could crush him effortlessly with a single claw. The most terrifying thing was that someone stood atop this dragon's head. Although the person appeared small next to the four-winged demon dragon, their aura was so formidable that martial resolution couldn't ignore it. Martial resolution's heartstrings tightened, sensing himself on the brink of a dire situation, uncertain how he might escape this peril. However, the Taoist atop the four-winged demon dragon merely glanced at martial resolution and did not command his mount to stop, nor did he make any move or utter any word towards martial resolution. Even after the four-winged demon dragon disappeared into the horizon, the look from the Taoist lingered in martial resolution's mind. What kind of gaze was that? Apathetic, devoid of any emotional color, unconcerned with his presence or condition. Such indifference was as if looking at a mere insect. No, even less than an insect, as if regarding the flowers and grass by the roadside. Martial resolution felt a deep sense of insult, though his anger faded quickly, replaced by relief. Though humiliated, at least he survived. He suddenly realized that this world was different from any he had visited before. Despite the dense demon chi, no demon has come to trouble him, perhaps not because they haven't noticed him, but because they have and simply don't care. Thinking of this, martial resolution's composure returned, and he began to anticipate the sights that lay ahead. Not until a full day and night passed did martial resolution return to his normal state. When dawn broke, he leapt into the air, proceeding with caution. He flew towards the direction with the most living auras. That direction held not only demon chi but other energies, even containing immortal chi. His instinct told him that flying that way, great opportunities awaited. Guan, while picking medicinal herbs, watched martial resolution as he went to listen to the Tao. He still missed this old friend. In the past, when he was yet weak, he became acquainted with martial resolution. At that time, both were nobodies in the supreme sect. Martial resolution's intense grief and sorrow could strangely prolong his lifespan, aiding him to reach his current heights. Martial resolution's arrival in Central Heaven was naturally orchestrated by Gu, and Central Heaven would eventually become the ultimate destination for cultivators of the 3,000 great worlds. Gu merely helped martial resolution arrive early. Without his intervention, martial resolution would have been torn to ashes by space-time turbulence. Now, when Guan looked at martial resolution, he perceived many things. Martial resolution's soul contained a true meaning of the great Tao. Although it was far from Hong Yi's creation, this true meaning of the great Tao could aid martial resolution to travel further. Upon arriving in Central Heaven, martial resolution immediately encountered countless new threads of destiny. Guan quietly extinguished some of the destiny lines that ended prematurely, so that when martial resolution faced choices in the future, he would be inexplicably led to make different decisions and avoid early demise. After gathering herbs, Guan stretched lazily, exchanged a few brief words with the ghost mother of ephemera, and left. The ghost mother of ephemera watched him depart, unaware that he had just altered another's fate during the process. Finished with collecting herbs, Guan walked through the fields, pondering what to do next. Along the way, Guan spotted Wuxia sparring with a disciple. The two wielded scimitars, dueling at the edge of the forest, their figures intersecting quickly but within the realm of the mundane. They had deliberately disguised themselves as martial artists. Guan did not pause his stride, yet his gaze invigorated Wuxia and the disciple, making their movements increasingly fast. Only after Guan vanished from their sight did they calm down. "Martial uncle, how many times do we have to fight like this?" The fighting disciple couldn't help but ask Wuxia. Wuxia glared at him and said, "Don't think it's tedious. One day you'll gain enlightenment from this. Your emotions aren't adequate. It's not like facing a mortal enemy. If you encounter someone suspicious, you'll surely be seen through. Do you want to be the first disciple expelled?" Upon hearing this, the male disciple quickly shook his head, his face contorting with hatred, making his moves erratic, which pleased Wuxia. Now that's more like it. Their battle was just a glimpse of events within the Taoist field of the beginningless. More and more disciples were attempting to practice mortal interactions to immerse themselves fully. Their instincts told them that the day for the Taoist field of the beginningless to open was approaching. Guan was also waiting. He was waiting for the human race to be established, for the celestial emperor to leave. In the years that followed, watching the experiences of Liya martial resolution and Hongyi became Guan's pastime. After the celestial emperor descended to the mortal world for countless millennia without finding Guan, he chose to leave central heaven. During this period, the celestial emperor once came near the beginningless, but was misled by Guan's Tao intent, causing him to bypass it. The absolute supreme of the heavenly Tao was unaware and could only leave with regret. Not long after the celestial emperor departed, the heavenly emperor descended with a female immortal. This female immortal descended in the extreme east to begin creating the human race. The birth of the human race led to the celestial Tao light layer shrouding central heaven to shower abundant merits, as the immortal gods proclaimed the event to all living beings. Creating a race could earn celestial Tao merits and ascend to immortality, which stirred a great uproar in the world, as the term human race etched itself into the awareness of all living beings. What kind of race could their mere birth elevate their creator to the immortal class? Learning of the human race's birth, the Wuxia disciples grew more anxious, as they were disguising themselves as mortals. Now that the human race was born, it clearly determined the opening of the beginningless. That day, in a bamboo forest, Guan sat on the steps, guiding an Xian and Zue in cultivating the immortal emperor's eye. As the two disciples meditated beside him, each staring into the other's eyes with their own immortal emperor's eye, they were using the immortal emperor's eye to engage in combat. Suddenly, an Xian and Zue's expressions changed dramatically as they were simultaneously repelled, falling to the ground. They sat up, clutching their chests, looking at Guan filled with a palpable sense of dread. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:11. Central Heaven's strongest and Xian turned her head to look at Guan, trying to calm her emotions. She said, "Master, in Central Heaven, a pair of immortal emperor's eyes has been born." For the first time, Sin felt the malice from another pair of immortal emperor's eyes, which made him uneasy, even though he was already an innate golden immortal. Guan sat on the steps, holding a book in his hands. He casually replied, "If the 3,000 great worlds can bring forth an immortal emperor's eye, why not Central Heaven? Even so, this pair of immortal emperor's eyes feels very sinister to me. It might bring disaster to Central Heaven," an Xian said worriedly. Having been in Central Heaven for so many years, she had gotten used to life here. Although battles occurred frequently, it was more harmonious compared to the Great Thousand World. She didn't want that pair of immortal emperor's eyes to destroy the current peace. Guan glanced at her, saying, "Central Heaven does not belong to you or me, nor even to all living beings. You should understand that, at least for now, all living beings have no autonomy." Hearing this, an Xian fell silent. She understood the implication of her master's words. Central Heaven was created by the Celestial Court, and its evolution is certainly orchestrated by the Celestial Court. Having gone through so many tribulations, an Xian could confirm that the celestial court was the supreme ruler of the heavenly Tao. No one could shake it, not even her master. Sin asked, "Master, could the immortal emperor's eye be related to the celestial court? I remember you said that the celestial court does not tolerate the existence of immortal emperor's eyes." Guwen replied, "That's right. The immortal emperor's eyes are derived from the celestial emperor's bloodline. However, with the fall of the Son of Heaven, its destiny was scattered across the heavens, making the immortal emperor's eyes into acquired divine power. Compared to the Son of Heaven's immortal emperor's eyes, there is a substantial gap." An Xian and Sin exchanged a glance, both furrowing their brows. Sin pressed on, "Can't our immortal emperor's eyes surpass the Son of Heaven's? Under normal circumstances, no. But through my creation, the immortal emperor's eyes can evolve into another type of eye." Guwen said with a smile, which immediately made an Xian and Sin's eyes light up. They promptly asked what kind of eye was above the immortal emperor's eyes. Guwen opened his eyes, and his pupils transformed into a golden red color. When the absolute void eye appeared, both an Xian and Sin felt a chill down their spines. Their bodies stiffened, unable to move, with an unprecedented feeling of suffocation and fear. What kind of eyes are these? Looking at the absolute void eye, their minds went blank, losing the ability to think. Guwen's pupils then changed back to normal, allowing the two to breathe a sigh of relief. Though it was just an instant, the absolute void eye made them feel like they'd walked on the edge of death, unforgettable and leaving them in shock. This is the absolute void eye. Its marvels beyond your imagination. It will take you a long time of effort to master it. Guwen cast his glance on the book in his hands, giving a brief introduction to the absolute void eye. His eyes had already evolved into the extreme demon and immortal pupil, but he could freely transform into the immortal emperor's eye or the absolute void eye, retaining the abilities of both. Absolute void eye? An Xian murmured the name, her eyes filled with excitement. Having studied the immortal emperor's eyes for so many years, she always felt that this divine skill had no upper limit. Upon learning that the acquired immortal emperor's eyes couldn't compare to the innate ones, she was deeply affected. Now that her master had created even stronger immortal emperor's eyes, how could she not be excited? Do the celestial emperor and the sons of heaven possess the absolute void eye? Sin asked nervously. Guwen's lips curled up, answering, "Only I have mastered it." Sin became immediately excited, even clenching his fists. An Xian, however, thought of a question. She couldn't help but ask, "Master, are your immortal emperor's eyes innate or acquired?" Hearing this, Sin also looked curiously at Gu and rolled his eyes, responding in exasperation, "I'm no son of heaven. I can be called a fellow Taoist with the celestial emperor." Sin stared, asking, "If that's the case, why do you hide here, and why dare those immortal gods attack you?" "Because I'm boasting. Must you ask so persistently? Can't you give your master a little dignity?" Guwen huffed, causing Sin to scratch his head awkwardly. And Xian didn't think too much about it. She asked Guwen, "Master, to what realm must I cultivate to practice the absolute void eye?" "Reach Dao Extreme Daluo Immortal first, and we'll see," Guwen said casually, his words like a cold bucket of water dousing their excitement. And Xian and Sin exchanged a look, then each sat down in meditation, continuing their cultivation. They no longer used the immortal emperor's eyes to spar but recalled the sensations that the absolute void eye had brought them. "When I master the absolute void eye, perhaps I'll be able to catch up with master, at least glimpse his realm." And Xian thought, her heart filled with determination. She admired and respected master the most, and catching up with him was her greatest wish. For this, she would remain unwavering, not confused, nor swayed by others or affairs. Sin, on the other hand, did not think that deeply. He simply desired the power of the absolute void eye. And Xian and Sin's premonition was correct. Thousands of years later, while the living beings of the world were still vying for dominance, the immortal emperor's eye emerged out of nowhere. This pair of eyes consumed the mana of living beings, rapidly growing stronger, causing fear among all. The immortal emperor's eye originated from the human race. Shortly after their emergence, they struck terror into all beings, casting a shadow over this land. As dusk fell upon the world, the hills and fields were covered with red flowers. Martial Resolution walked through the sea of flowers, captivated by the breathtaking scenery surrounding him. The spiritual energy here is so unique, Martial Resolution muttered to himself, his steps never ceasing. He had been in central heaven for some time. He had listened to great powers preaching, and upon hearing that he had arrived at the future Heavenly Tao Center, he was thrilled, seeing it as a massive opportunity. Perhaps when he returned to the 3,000 Great Worlds, he would surpass all his old acquaintances, including that once unrecognizable old friend. For this reason, he aimed to grow stronger, seizing every chance. This time, he had come to this place seeking an ancient true immortal. It was said that an immortal god lived in this area, holding a high position in the celestial court, having given many sermons in central heaven, with his sacred name widely celebrated. This immortal was known as the white-haired ancestor. Rumor had it that the white-haired ancestor was waiting for a destined person. If chosen, they would be taken as an inheriting disciple and could eventually be ranked among the immortal class. Martial Resolution had no great desire for immortality. He simply wanted to become stronger, and the white-haired ancestor was the strongest individual he had heard of thus far. Filled with anticipation, Martial Resolution quickened his pace. Just then, an aura approached rapidly from behind, startling Martial Resolution to turn and look. He saw a figure clad in white continuously appearing closer, arousing his vigilance. Judging by the other's aura, their cultivation level was not inferior to his. If they intended to attack, their speed would surely be faster. Martial Resolution stopped, waiting for the white-clad figure to arrive before him. Soon, that person appeared before him, and upon seeing their features, he was taken aback by their beauty and distinguished aura. A handsome face and outstanding temperament, the Heavenly Emperor looked at Martial Resolution, wearing a gentle smile. He spoke, "I am supreme. May I know how to address fellow Taoist? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 9:12. Supreme in Shock Supreme? Such an arrogant title. Martial Resolution thought to himself, then cupped his fists and greeted. "My name is Martial Resolution. Upon meeting fellow Taoist, I wonder what business you might have?" Though Emperor Taihao seemed harmless, Martial Resolution remained cautious. Emperor Taihao smiled and said, "I observe that your cause and effect seem to originate from the Celestial Spirit Great World. I have also been to the Celestial Spirit Great World, having ascended here thousands of years ago." Upon hearing this, Martial Resolution was secretly startled. The fact that the other could see through his cause and effect indicated a cultivation level stronger than his own. Feigning surprise, he asked, "Fellow Taoist has actually been to the Celestial Spirit Great World. When was it, if I may ask?" Emperor Taihao sighed and said, "It was during the Immortal Demon War, when I fled there." Hearing these words, Martial Resolution fell silent. He had experienced that catastrophe. While the Celestial Spirit Great World narrowly escaped disaster, many other great thousand worlds suffered immensely. In this sense, the person wasn't lying, for during that time the Celestial Spirit Great World was indeed a rare sanctuary. "Are you also seeking the white-haired ancestor?" Emperor Taihao shifted the subject and asked curiously. Martial Resolution nodded and said, "Having ascended to this realm, one must seek immortal fate. I heard the white-haired ancestor awaits a destined one, so I thought I might try." Emperor Taihao laughed. "How coincidental, so am I. Why don't we partner up and journey together and chat along the way? After ascending for such a long time, meeting a kindred spirit fills my heart with joy." Martial Resolution hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Thus, the two set off together. Emperor Taihao was adept at conversation. Every question Martial Resolution asked would receive a response, followed by a related inquiry from Emperor Taihao. Before reaching the white-haired ancestor's dojo, martial resolution already had a sense of regretting not meeting sooner. Emperor Taihao reminded him of Guwen, evoking memories of their long-ago acquaintance. Who knew after so many years he could still find such a soulmate? Several hours later, the two entered a valley where the flowers and plants started exhibiting different colors, still vibrant. They stopped talking and focused their gaze on the colorful surroundings. The white-haired ancestor is the celestial Tao venerable of the celestial court. In the 3,000 great worlds, you won't encounter her. If you came to central heaven a few eras later, you likewise wouldn't have the chance to meet her. This is our best opportunity. Even if we fail, just seeing the Supreme's true form would leave no regrets in this life. Emperor Taihao spoke with a peculiar tone, which fell upon martial resolution's ears as longing for the celestial Tao venerable. Celestial Tao venerable? It was the first time martial resolution heard this title. To be named supreme must mean this white-haired ancestor holds a high status in the celestial court, perhaps comparable to the ancestor master Wuxia's status in the celestial spirit great world. The ancestor of the immortals. Sounds immensely powerful. Martial resolution's gaze became passionate. If he could obtain the white-haired ancestor's inheritance, he could surely achieve enlightenment and fulfill all his prior desires. Meanwhile, at the top of a nearby mountain, Guwen, clad in an azure robe, was gazing down upon them. Neither martial resolution, nor Emperor Taihao, nor the white-haired ancestor hidden in the depths of the valley sensed Guwen's presence. As long as Guwen wished, they wouldn't see him even if standing right before him. Guwen looked at Emperor Taihao with some pity in his heart. This son of heaven, possessing the greatest talent, would die in central heaven. An Xian and the Sin sensed the immortal emperor's eye that originated from Emperor Taihao's immortal emperor's eye. The celestial emperor helped him restore the power of the immortal emperor's eye, allowing him to absorb mana from every living being to grow stronger. Later, he would engage in a decisive battle with Emperor Taihao in this realm. Before that, he needed to become the most wicked being so that Emperor Taihao could become the savior. For Emperor Taihao, this was a dead end. His only chance of survival was defeating Emperor Taihao, to once again be the most qualified son of heaven to succeed the celestial emperor. It was a very tragic path, gambling on the fact that the celestial emperor wasn't deceiving him. In truth, Emperor Taihao didn't trust the celestial emperor, hence he wished to enjoy his last moments. Guwen turned to look towards the valley. He saw the white-haired ancestor sitting under a peach tree, playing the zither, yet no sound emanated. The first time seeing the white-haired ancestor was at the endless Tao mountain, where Guwen went to listen to the Tao. Now meeting the white-haired ancestor again, Guwen felt a different sentiment in his heart. After several 100 million years, the white-haired ancestor was still at the late-stage Taoist Great Luo immortal realm in cultivation. This was the true situation of immortal cultivation. Seeing her increased Guwen's appreciation for what he currently possessed. Having cultivated to this realm, is escape still impossible? Celestial Tao venerable. Guwen thought to himself, observing how the white-haired ancestor had become embroiled in the struggle between Emperor Taihao and the celestial emperor. The white-haired ancestor chose to support Emperor Taihao solely because Emperor Taihao's master was her grand disciple. Over the long years, Emperor Taihao's master had already fallen into chaos, yet this sentiment remained. Unfortunately, the white-haired ancestor would never have imagined that the so-called Emperor Taihao was actually the true body of the celestial emperor. It's not just her. All immortal gods in the celestial court wouldn't imagine. Every time the celestial emperor changes identity, he leaves no traces. Those immortal gods who knew the truth no longer exist. Guwen came this time intending to assist martial resolution. Since the white-haired ancestor was destined to die, he chose to strengthen his old friend. According to the original fate, martial resolution did not earn the white-haired ancestor's trust. Instead, it was Emperor Taihao who stayed. Many years later, when martial resolution, along with great powers worldwide, campaigned against the human race led by Emperor Taihao, seeing him again shocked martial resolution. He never expected such a close friend would tread such an intensely wicked path. Under Gu An's watchful eyes, martial resolution and Emperor Taihao entered the valley and met the white-haired ancestor. Facing this celestial Tao, venerable martial resolution was quite nervous, whereas Emperor Taihao appeared very composed. The white-haired ancestor was indeed waiting for Emperor Taihao. However, since martial resolution came, she symbolically issued a test, asking both to comprehend a great cauldron. Guan silently aided martial resolution with Tao intent, enabling him to first comprehend the secret technique within the cauldron, surprising the white-haired ancestor. Though surprised inwardly, the white-haired ancestor remained outwardly calm, as if she had predicted this outcome. Before Emperor Taihao awoke, she accepted martial resolution as a disciple. The process was clean and swift, making martial resolution believe the legends were indeed true. He was immensely excited and immediately bowed to the white-haired ancestor. After a long while, Emperor Taihao also awakened. He successfully comprehended the secret technique, but upon learning martial resolution had achieved enlightenment quicker, he was shocked. He gave martial resolution a deep look. His astonishment surpassed even that of the white-haired ancestor. So the talent of a mortal spirit can surpass that of the Son of Heaven? Thus, martial resolution and Emperor Taihao both apprenticed under the white-haired ancestor, to henceforth cultivate supreme Tao technique in this valley. The white-haired ancestor watched martial resolution, engrossed in discussion with Emperor Taihao, feeling a mix of emotions. She merely sought to wait for Emperor Taihao, unexpectedly encountering such a prodigy. His talent was average, but deep within his soul lay a peculiar true meaning of the great Tao. Coupled with his incredible comprehension, after her initial shock, the white-haired ancestor suddenly had an idea. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 913. Hongmeng creation. After 3,000 years of cultivation at the white-haired ancestor's dojo, the heavenly emperor roamed the world once more, wildly absorbing living beings' cultivation levels. Those beings did not die after being deprived, but without cultivation in the middle heaven world, it was almost equivalent to a death sentence. As the heavenly emperor grew stronger, the various overlords of the world began to feel uneasy. They joined forces in an attempt to eliminate the heavenly emperor, but were repeatedly defeated. Meanwhile, the heavenly emperor cemented his fearsome reputation. Supreme demon god, his demonic might engulfed the world, leaving all beings anxious. With this great battle, even the Wuxia disciples learned of the supreme demon god's existence. The Wuxia disciples never expected that the human race in Central Heaven would be the first to initiate catastrophe in this world. In the celestial spirit great world, the human race was always the protagonist and savior in their understanding. In private, they discussed this matter, feeling that Central Heaven had become more dangerous than the celestial spirit great world. Time flew by. 7,000 years quickly passed. That year, within the valley dojo of the white-haired ancestor, Wu Ju, dressed in blue, bowed to the white-haired ancestor, knocking his head 3 times on the ground. The white-haired ancestor sat under the peach tree, her expression indifferent, her gaze falling upon Wu Ju without a ripple. Once Wu Ju stood up, the white-haired ancestor finally spoke. The Taoist technique I have imparted to you originates from chaos. My ancestor traveled through chaos and received a legacy. The cultivation technique and divine skills you have learned are imbued with the creations of the great Tao. In the future, you may surpass me. Central Heaven is a new world. The order has yet to be established. I hope you think carefully about your actions lest you find yourself in an irreparable situation. I will not lend you a hand. Wu Ju immediately replied, Master, rest assured, I will not cause trouble for you in the future. The white-haired ancestor closed her eyes, indicating that it was time for Wu Ju to leave. Wu Ju hesitated for a moment, then asked, Master, does the Supreme have some mission? Why did he leave so hastily before? You seemed somewhat displeased with him. The white-haired ancestor, eyes still closed, answered, From now on, pretend you don't know him. His identity is special. His path is fraught with peril, and no one else can interfere. Hearing this, Wu Ju felt confused but suppressed his speculations, turning and leaving. He looked towards the celestial vault beyond the valley, feeling that everything had changed. Perhaps I can really make a name for myself in this world. Wu Ju thought of his abilities, feeling exhilarated. He was already looking forward to the journey ahead. Unbeknownst to him, the white-haired ancestor was watching him from behind. Comprehension even greater than the heavenly emperor's. Could you be the variable the ancestor mentioned? The white-haired ancestor's eyes sparkled with unusual luster, filled with expectations for Wu Ju's future. She originally planned to fully support the heavenly emperor, but Wu Ju's appearance made her reconsider. At the very least, there was no need to risk everything. The struggle for the singular position of the heavenly emperor was too dangerous. Unless there was no other choice, it was best not to get involved. Elsewhere, Guan, fishing by the lake, smiled. He saw that the white-haired ancestor's fate had changed, indicating she no longer intended to support the heavenly emperor. This was reciprocation for the teachings she once imparted. Guan thought while looking at the lake. His intention was to help Wu Ju, and by doing so, he incidentally also helped the white-haired ancestor. This was a win-win situation, and he didn't mind the trouble, nor did he fear future changes. As for the heavenly emperor, he had no intention of involving himself with him. Setting down his fishing rod, he stretched his neck, the reflection in his eyes showing scenes of the underworld. Zhang Buku and Suyu were advancing, intending to utilize reincarnation to travel to Central Heaven. With more old friends coming to Central Heaven, Guan grew more eager for the future. Not just old friends from the celestial spirit great world, but also some he had met in the lifespan reincarnation were coming to Central Heaven. These old acquaintances he befriended in the past had now become great powers, coming to Central Heaven to break through their own limits. Guan once more looked at the heavenly Tao, where countless cosmic planes were weaving lines of destiny, with Central Heaven at the center. Suddenly, he noticed that the fortune of Central Heaven had changed slightly. He focused on sensing it. Mysteriously, he captured a will. This will was dispersed throughout the heavenly Tao, ubiquitous, watching over the masses, brewing a powerful force. The will of the celestial emperor. Though Guan had observed the heavenly Tao before, it was his first time capturing the celestial emperor's will pervading the entire heavenly Tao. What was the celestial emperor up to? He felt the celestial emperor's will probing even into the underworld. Was it searching for him? Guan was curious and saw this as a good opportunity, so he decided to observe the celestial emperor's will. Soon, his consciousness intruded into a fragment of memory. A great hall, where the celestial emperor stood unmoving. Above, the dark red void churned with nebulae, resembling demon gods. In front of the celestial emperor, 3 stone pillars stood, above which hovered a massive star like the sun, within which an eye moved, as if it resided in another world, spying on the universe where the celestial emperor resided. The current celestial emperor was young, much like the heavenly emperor, devoid of any domineering aura. He gazed at the eye within the solar star, brows furrowed. "My creation will doom me?" the celestial emperor asked coldly. Next, a hoarse voice replied, "That's right, you destroyed Hong Meng, and this cause and effect will entangle you, eventually backfiring upon you." This made Guan reflect on his experiences. He had gone to the Hong Meng Great World, breaking through there, leaving a deep impression. Though desolate, the Hong Meng Great World gave Guan a sense of hidden secrets. After becoming a saint, Guan looked again, seeing the Hong Meng Great World beneath the heavenly Tao, lying deeper within the cosmic plane. In terms of size, Hong Meng was even larger than the entire range of the heavenly Tao, like an abyss giant mouth beneath the heavenly Tao, ready to swallow it at any moment. However, the Hong Meng Great World hid no saints or supreme emperors of merging Tao, only a few lingering souls lurking in the shadows, or faint wills waiting to be born. Could the founding of the heavenly Tao be related to the Hong Meng Great World? Guan grew interested. Is Hong Meng truly so terrifying? The celestial emperor asked, tinged with doubt. The hoarse voice continued. Hongmeng's history predates chaos itself. In past eras, beings as powerful as you were born there, yet Hongmeng persists, never entirely swallowed by chaos. Surely that's not mere coincidence. The Celestial Emperor fell silent again. Guwen became interested in the eye, but he could not perform cause and effect deduction on it within this memory fragment. The memory was simply too ancient, appearing before the birth of the heavenly Tao, making it difficult to estimate this entity's cultivation level. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:14. Mysterious Curse. How many years has the heavenly Tao existed? It can no longer be measured by time, yet even so, Guwen remains vigilant against unknown cause and effect. Although the Celestial Emperor does not greatly revere the existence of this eye, beings that lived before the heavenly Tao are unimaginable entities, coexisting with the great Tao. I refuse to believe it. I will see how Hongmeng retaliates against me. The Celestial Emperor snorted coldly, his tone filled with disdain. If I can exterminate the Lord of Hongmeng, I can annihilate the cause and effect of Hongmeng. After speaking, the Celestial Emperor turned around and stepped forward, while the eye within the solar star fixed its gaze firmly on him. Guwen gazed steadily at this eye, sensing a strange power from it. The owner of this eye seemed to be cursed. The root of anything is the great Tao, and curses also originate from the great Tao. They can be observed. The curse power entwining this eye is more profound and unfathomable than any curse Guwen has encountered before. Merely sensing this curse power made Guwen feel that the owner of this eye was suffering greatly. Perhaps he existed within the solar star because he was cursed. As the Celestial Emperor departed, the scene suddenly changed. The Celestial Emperor appeared above the vast bright light of the heavenly Tao. His aura had already changed, 7/10 similar to the Celestial Emperor Guwen observed before. Now it was the early creation period of the heavenly Tao. The Celestial Emperor was immersed in his creation, his face full of satisfaction. The heavenly Tao was newly established, with no living beings yet, but he could already see the future of the heavenly Tao. Gradually, the smile on the Celestial Emperor's face disappeared. He seemed to see something. Anger flashed in his eyes. However, from Guwen's perspective, a shadow appeared behind the Celestial Emperor. The figure of that shadow was identical to the Celestial Emperor, only its movements did not match, as if the shadow was about to come alive. And the Celestial Emperor did not notice the anomaly behind him. When the Celestial Emperor bent down to rush downward, that shadow lingered in the void. Guwen saw clearly that the Celestial Emperor was unable to perceive it because the shadow's realm was far above his. At that time, the Celestial Emperor had not yet achieved the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao, while that shadow was already at the Supreme Emperor Perfect Cultivation level. The memory fragment shattered again, and Guwen entered another memory. A long time passed. Guwen opened his eyes, his fishing rod unchanged. No fish had yet taken the bait, but it was already near dusk. From the Celestial Emperor's will, Guwen glimpsed many beings. These beings appeared in the Celestial Emperor's memories because the Celestial Emperor was currently puzzled. Just like that shadow, the Celestial Emperor did not notice at first, but as he reached the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao, he became aware of its existence, though he could not trace its whereabouts. This time, the Celestial Emperor used his will to search the entire heavenly Tao, not targeting Guwen, but the cause and effect of Hongmeng. As for why the Celestial Emperor conducted the search at this time, perhaps he sensed something. Guwen started to reel in his rod. The recent observations sparked new guesses and understandings of the great Tao within him. He was now very interested in Hongmeng, for the Celestial Emperor ironically could create the heavenly Tao seemingly by leveraging the cause and effect of the Hongmeng Great World. He hesitated about whether to take a trip to the Hongmeng Great World. While the Celestial Emperor might not perceive the existence of the Hongmeng Great World, he could step directly into it. Forget it. Better not go. Focus on becoming stronger himself. Guwen could see a long future for the heavenly Tao. As long as the future could be seen, it meant there was no calamity that could threaten him. He would not settle for the primordial Tai True Saint realm. Even if there was no one in the same realm on the surface, he would still strive to grow stronger. When there were no more puzzles in his heart, that would be the moment of truly being the strongest. The supreme demon god roamed invincible. No creature could subdue him. And in the years that followed, human race strongmen began to rise, following him in battle, making all living beings in the world feel a sense of crisis. Thus, the one who established the concept of the demon race, a figure of great power, called upon all the demon race of the world to gather and select a demon emperor together, to unite the demon race of the world, and jointly resist the supreme demon god. For a time, the entire world became lively, with powerful beings flying over the Taoist field of the beginningless every day, provoking much discussion among the Wuxia disciples. On this day, in the courtyard, Xiao Lan came to find Guwen. She sat by Guwen's side, and curiously asked, "Is that little creature from before going to rise in this grand event, becoming one of the 7 demon emperors, or even the ancestor of 10,000 beasts?" She always remembered that day. She and an Xian accompanied Guwen fishing. When they encountered a fire-red crow, Guwen said it would become the ancestor of 10,000 beasts in the future. Its name was Feng Qiu. Guwen was holding a book recently written by Wuxia, he replied casually. That's right, as early as a few years ago, he had already become famous throughout the world, just that the fame hadn't reached Wuxia yet. Upon hearing this, Xiao Lan became even more curious. She began to question about this upcoming demon race grand event, and Guwen answered them one by one, as these were events soon to happen, and Xiao Lan couldn't interfere. Revealing the secret wouldn't affect much. From Guwen's answers, Xiao Lan could already feel how strong the demon race had become. She found it incredible. After spending so many years in Central Heaven, she felt time flew by quickly. The first day of arrival seemed just like yesterday. Yet during these years, Central Heaven's foundation already far surpassed the celestial spirit great world. The demon race had over 100 beings reaching the Taiqing golden immortal realm. What kind of talent was that? Her mindset began to change, from looking down at Central Heaven to looking up. For the first time, she felt her own talent was quite ordinary. By the way, what is the origin of that supreme demon god? Is it also a pawn of the heavenly court immortals? Xiao Lan asked, perplexed. Such a powerful demon race couldn't overcome the supreme demon god. Then how terrifying must the supreme demon god be? Guwen glanced at her, smiling. You have become smart. Xiao Lan fell silent for a moment, then asked, does it have to be that all living beings slaughter each other for the heavenly Tao to advance? Such rules seem too absurd. In your eyes, it might seem as if the heavenly Tao is at a standstill, with living beings born and perishing, but in reality, each tribulation breeds stronger beings, their cultivation levels, their destiny, strong enough to rival the entire heaven and earth. The heavenly Tao is indeed unfair to mortal spirits, but it favors the immortals. Guwen answered, stating the facts. The celestial court also had similar tribulations and reincarnations, each time consuming 90% of the immortal gods. Yet those who survived grew stronger. Those celestial Tao supremes were those who survived the calamities. Breaking through limits, one immortal's destiny equals millions of immortals. And it was with such a strategy that the celestial emperor continuously grew stronger. However, such a strategy also had limits, and now the celestial emperor was aware of a bottleneck, wanting to change the heavenly Tao. Xiao Lan looked up at Guwen, asking, Senior brother, will you interfere with Central Heaven in the future? Guwen chuckled faintly and said, Since I am in this world, how can I be completely isolated from it? Once the dojo opens, trouble will find its way here. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know, report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:15. The dojo enters the world. Upon hearing Guwen's words, Xiao Lan deeply agreed, and she wouldn't try to persuade Guwen not to open the dojo. All living beings must integrate into the world. Their efforts in cultivation are just for more freedom within it. If it's just to avoid calamity, then why bother cultivating? Dying early would end it all, wouldn't it? The Wuxia disciples fear being expelled from the sect, yet they also eagerly anticipate the day the dojo opens, wanting to witness Central Heaven with their own eyes. Not only the Wuxia disciples, but Xiao Lan also holds such anticipation. After chatting for a while, Xiao Lan returned to her cultivation. After she left, Shenzhen, sitting before the artifact refining cauldron, turned his head to Guan and said, Feng Qiu Demon Emperor, I can somewhat deduce, but that supreme demon god, I cannot fathom at all. What is his origin? A pitiful son of heaven, but he is not worthy of sympathy, for he orchestrated the cleansing of the 3,000 great worlds. Guan replied. These words made Shun Zhan's heart tremble, and she asked in surprise, How is that high son of heaven pitiful, and why did he become a demon personally? Precisely because of this, that's why I say he's pitiful. Right now, he can't act on his own accord, as the celestial court harbors even greater powers than he does. Upon hearing this, Shun Zhan immediately thought of a certain being, the legendary celestial emperor. Though she had heard of the celestial Tao venerable in the celestial court, in many myths and legends, the celestial emperor was the supreme existence. Shun Zhan clicked her tongue in wonder, realizing that the internal struggle within the celestial court was no simpler than those among mortal spirit forces. The last time she heard from Guan, that son of heaven held the reign in the celestial court, yet in the blink of an eye, he fell to the human world as a demon, descending from the heavens to the mundane world. Becoming a demon does not have a good end. Even if Shun Zhan believed the immortal gods were hypocritical, she trusted that the celestial court would always uphold the principle that evil does not triumph over good. Shun Zhan stopped questioning and continued her enlightenment. The Taoist field of the beginningless was tranquil and harmonious, yet the outside world ebbed and flowed. The demon race summit proceeded smoothly, ultimately selecting the 7 demon emperors, who together discussed the future of the demon race, quickly deciding to campaign against the supreme demon god. However, the supreme demon god was not alone. Besides the human race supporting him, there were numerous powerful beings. As he grew stronger, more beings followed him, gradually forming a great force. In such a context, the human race rapidly rose as well, their reproduction abilities incredibly formidable. Their offspring's talents were all exceptional, born with the innate Taoist body that all beings longed for. The body of the human race was called the innate Taoist body. As all beings cultivated, they would evolve into the innate Taoist body. Because of this, the human race was so extraordinary. They were created by the celestial emperor based on the innate Taoist body, born with great fortune. Humans of central heaven were without lifespan limits, making them even stronger. Several thousands of years passed again. On this day, Zizai brought news to all the disciples. The ancestor plans to deactivate the dojo. This news excited all the disciples. They could understand why the dojo was being deactivated. The spiritual energy and Tao intent within the dojo were too dense, and once outsiders set foot in it, they would sense something extraordinary here. Even if they disguised themselves as mortals, outsiders wouldn't believe it. Simultaneously, Zizai also informed them of the upper cultivation level set by the ancestor, forbidding anyone to exceed the free immortal cultivation level. Such cultivation level in the Great Thousand World wasn't very low, but in central heaven it truly was just mortal. At noon, Guan stood on the cliff of the mountain of no end, gazing at the celestial vault. He was looking at the palace of the pole star in the celestial court. He chose this time to open the dojo because the celestial emperor was about to enter the reincarnation period. Heavenly Emperor Taihao was not merely a clone. To make the cause and effect and destiny completely different, Heavenly Emperor Taihao was essentially the son of the celestial emperor. The celestial emperor needed time to fully transfer his realm and soul into Heavenly Emperor Taihao. Guan saw that even if Heavenly Emperor Taihao became the celestial emperor, he wouldn't fully inherit the celestial emperor's memory, requiring long years for integration. To him, this period was too long, yet to the celestial emperor it was insignificant. Of course, if the heavenly Tao encountered issues during this process, the celestial emperor could directly return. Taking advantage of the celestial emperor being occupied with reincarnation, Guan could finally breathe some fresh air. Suhan arrived beside Guan, excitedly asking, "Ancestor, if beings enter our territory and provoke us, can we retaliate?" Guan kept his eyes fixed on the celestial vault and softly replied, "Of course you can. If any outsider stirs trouble, you may act according to the situation. I won't blame you for it." Upon hearing this, Suhan instantly beamed with joy, thanked Guan, and then turned to leave, ready to spread the news to all disciples. Guwen continued to stare at the celestial vault, waiting until nightfall with billions of stars adorning the sky, beautiful as a painting. When he turned around, the moon set and the sun rose, heralding a new day. All disciples were making preparations, looking forward eagerly. A year later, at the break of dawn, the spiritual energy of the Wuxia Dao field began to sink, quickly alerting all the disciples. The disciples emerged from their buildings. To welcome central heaven, they abandoned their cave mansions and constructed pavilions, even towns, resembling a dynasty. Once the dojo was thoroughly closed, the disciples began their activities. Guwen allowed them to wander and reside on this continent but forbade them from going to sea. The disciples departed in groups. Even if they could not leave the continent, they were full of anticipation. Even an Xian and Xinjin descended the mountain. Guwen stood on the mountain, watching the disciples explore with excitement, a smile appearing on his face. He understood the disciples were stifled for too long. He often snuck out, but the disciples couldn't, so it was quite hard on them. Yet this was their own choice. He wouldn't alter his attitude because of it. Guwen noticed that on a nearby mountain, Fairy Yaoxian was also gazing into the distance. Seeing this lady, the memories of the Emperor of Eternal Life unavoidably surfaced in Guwen's mind. Previously, he revisited the road of reincarnation with the identity of Ji, and he suddenly thought, should he let the Emperor of Eternal Life tread it once more? To see if the Emperor of Eternal Life could create an extraordinary life in Central Heaven. But now Central Heaven wasn't strong enough. Once the Emperor of Eternal Life reached the realm of the heaven-opening Daluo Immortal, it would attract the gaze of immortal gods. Guwen did not continue to stare at Fairy Yaoxian but, after a moment, turned around and returned to his house. Even Xinjun had left, allowing him to enjoy some solitude. After the dojo closed, no spirits from Central Heaven rushed over, because Central Heaven was indeed too vast. During the wait, the disciples' excitement gradually subsided. After waiting for 120 years, someone finally reached this continent. A man in a Taoist robe, riding a banana leaf, crossing the sea to arrive. He was a human race cultivator, with cultivation at the profound Yuan-free immortal realm. Such cultivation was not strong in Central Heaven, but also not the weakest. Upon discovering that this continent hid many beings, he developed a keen interest in it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:16. The variable from Earth. Someone is coming. Before the Taoists set foot on the continent where Wuxia was located, all the Wuxiji disciples sensed it. They were quite excited, but did not go to greet him. Instead, they took their respective positions, waiting for the first test. Guwen was practicing Tai Chi in the courtyard, wearing loose white clothes, feeling leisurely and content. Shenzhen, for once, was not sitting in front of the artifact-refining cauldron. She stood aside, watching Guwen practice, and curiously asked, "What kind of connection will this newcomer have with Wuxia?" She could deduce the past of beings with higher cultivation levels than herself but couldn't predict the future of Wuxia. She saw the Taoist's past in her mind, yet couldn't foresee his future with Wuxia. The future of the Taoist seemed missing a piece, making his future complex and intertwined. "Wouldn't it be more interesting to see for yourself?" Guwen replied casually with a calm tone, seemingly uninterested in the Taoist. In fact, he was indeed not interested, not even thinking of meeting the person. His arrival merely symbolized that Wuxia was about to merge into Central Heaven. More interesting people would come to Wuxia in the future, and Wuxia would also provide opportunities for some cultivators, making them figures of world renown. Overall, Wuxia would bring many possibilities. Guwen was quite open about this, only requiring his disciples not to reveal their identity as Wuxiji disciples. Central Heaven is not simple. There are immortal gods watching from above, so Guwen's Tao intent enveloped the continent, allowing the disciples' Qi concealment techniques to escape the scrutiny of immortal gods. Seeing Guwen's demeanor, Shunjin knew he was completely uninterested in the visitor. She rolled her eyes and smilingly asked, Will you take in disciples in the future? Everything has its own destiny. Guwen answered nonchalantly. Destined by whom? Shunjin almost blurted out, but she knew Guwen would never admit it. Even until now, she wasn't sure how strong Guwen was. She could only confirm that he was stronger than most immortal gods, but not to the extent of disregarding the celestial court. While she was lost in thought, the Taoist had already arrived. He folded the banana leaf and began walking on foot. When he saw that a human race lived here, he felt relieved and began to converse warmly. Through this Taoist, the Wuxia disciples could also learn about the current situation of the human race. The human race cultivates the fastest in the world, but because it's too fast, crossing the tribulation is more challenging than for other beings. Now, with the presence of the supreme demon god, survival has become even more difficult for humanity. This Taoist disliked the actions of the supreme demon god, so he left the human race to live alone. However, wherever he went, other beings either fled in panic or hunted him. Eventually, this Taoist chose to stay on the continent, which increased the pressure on the Wuxia disciples. They initially thought this person was just a passerby, but never expected him to stay. Especially those disciples who greeted him silently exclaimed in distress. However, Guwen did not let the disciples be embarrassed. 6 months later, he let an opportunity far away emerge, and the vast aura immediately attracted the Taoist. During these 6 months, the Taoist found that the human race here was not very strong, and the spiritual energy wasn't very suitable for cultivation. His interest was already waning. Now, feeling a vast spiritual energy, he bade farewell to those around him and then flew off the continent. The 2 disciples who had made his acquaintance let out a sigh of relief, as did the disciples disguised as shopkeepers, pedestrians, and officials in the street. Because of one person, more than 2 million disciples had to disguise themselves as members of a dynasty, with nobles and commoners, which was more challenging than they had anticipated. Born in central heaven, the beings had significant cultivation and large spheres of activity, occasionally moving to another place, often catching the Wuxia disciples off guard. Once the Taoist departed, the disciples could finally breathe a sigh of relief. On the mountain of no end, in the courtyard, the ghost mother of ephemera stood in front of Guwen, remarking, "That person was quite abiding by the rules, not forcing his way up the mountain when told not to." Guwen sat on the steps before the pavilion, carving a wooden sculpture, softly laughed and said, "Indeed quite rule-abiding, and he didn't steal my medicinal herbs either." The ghost mother of ephemera came precisely because of this matter. She asked, "Master, what if someone wants to pick your medicinal herbs in the future or force their way up the mountain? What should we do?" Guwen replied casually, "If mistakes are made, they naturally deserve punishment. Depending on the situation, for minor infractions, erase their memory and expel them. For serious ones, let their soul dissipate here." Upon hearing this, the ghost mother of ephemera didn't feel a trace of fear, instead showing a smile. Handling things this way is quite refreshing. If they had to constantly endure grievances to conceal their cultivation level, their Tao heart would be unsettled. Afterward, the ghost mother of ephemera stopped bothering Guwen and turned to leave. Not long after she left, Guwen suddenly looked up, squinting, gazing toward the horizon. He discovered a mysterious aura coming from the chaos, rapidly approaching the heavenly Tao. This speed had already surpassed the full speed of a Tao Extreme Daluo Immortal. Moreover, this aura was exceedingly difficult to detect, even for the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao. For the Celestial Emperor, this aura should be very faint too. Yet, if the Celestial Emperor was observant, he should be able to notice it. Otherwise, this aura wouldn't have dared to descend coinciding with his rebirth. Guwen narrowed his eyes and an unusual color shone in them. That is, in Guwen's pupils, a meteor was reflected, a meteor shining with azure light, traveling across the void. Upon closer inspection, within the azure light were actually 3 train carriages. These were the carriages of a high-speed rail from Earth, containing dozens of mortal auras. Most of these mortals were sleeping with their eyes closed. A few were holding mobile phones, reminding Guwen of his past life. The clothing of these people, as well as their phone models, were very similar to what he used to know before his death in his previous life, at least recognizable to him. What on earth? Where did these people come from? Judging by their state, they seemed unaware that the carriages were moving through the universe, as if they were resting in the night. Gu closely observed them, calculating their cause and effect. He found these people came from an extremely distant Earth, with their cause and effect originating from beyond the chaos, to his surprise. However, these people were indeed ordinary humans from Earth, with no cultivation level, living mundane first halves of their lives with no contact with extraordinary power. As their carriages moved forward, they were enveloped by a mysterious force, directly transported away from Earth, out of the universe, crossing through the void and into chaos. This process was long and complex, yet the people inside the carriages were entirely unaware. Act of a saint. Guwen was nearly certain of this, though this saint seemed very wary of chaos, not daring to reveal his power. The force within the carriage was very faint. If the celestial emperor could perceive it, he could exert full power to stop these 3 train carriages. He deduced these 3 carriages would silently break into the heavenly Tao and fall into the 3,000 great worlds. When the people inside the carriages awaken, the carriage would have already stopped on a desolate land. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 917. Great Infinite Demon Ancestor Guwen was very interested in the mastermind behind the 3 train cars. He no longer fixed his gaze on those train cars, but instead turned his eyes towards the distant Earth. Before this, he was uncertain about how vast the chaos was, but now he could be sure that these 3 train cars flew in from somewhere outside the chaos. What kind of force orchestrated all of this, and for what purpose? In Guwen's pupils, the Earth was reflected. In the cosmos, Earth was situated in a small corner, appearing so lonely. Waves stirred in Guwen's eyes because he could affirm that the Earth where he lived in his previous life was this very Earth. His vision began to enlarge, and the Earth rapidly shrank in his eyes. The solar system appeared before him, and then the solar system also started to shrink. Then it was the Milky Way galaxy. The image kept contracting, and soon the Milky Way also became smaller than dust. Ultimately, the entire universe appeared in Guwen's eyes. His pupils abruptly contracted, as such a vast universe was unexpectedly held in the palm of a terrifying existence. In the dark purple boundless void, a truly immense physique floated. Its upper body was human-like, the lower half a swirling nebula changing colors, with the upper body covered in black hair, and a face marked by a black hole, devoid of features, long hair fluttering like twisting rivers. This mysterious entity had 8 arms, with one hand holding dozens of universes. The universe where Earth resided just one among many, like dozens of glowing dots suspended in its palm. What kind of being was this? Even the well-informed Guwen felt uneasy seeing this being, as if encountering an ultimate evil demon god. The mysterious 8-armed entity did not emit overwhelming demonic chi or resentment. On the contrary, it had not a hint of aura, quietly residing in the void, indistinguishable whether it was cultivating or slumbering. Gradually, it raised another arm, which gently swept towards the palm holding dozens of universes. A meteor soared from one universe, heading towards the distant chaos. This meteor also contained a mortal, just one person, a woman. Although this meteor, like the 3 train cars, traveled fast, its destination was in the future. Guwen stared at the 8-armed entity. A name surged in his mind. The Great Infinite Demon Ancestor. This moniker could not be uttered directly. Otherwise, one would suffer an eternal curse, not even death leading to the soul's redemption. Under Guwen's gaze, the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor would periodically wave his hand, selecting mortals from the universes under his control to send into chaos. Before Guwen's current life began, Earthlings had descended upon the 3,000 great worlds, but all perished on the path of immortal cultivation. Guwen pondered whether his birth in the celestial spirit great world was also the work of the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor. No. He reincarnated into the celestial spirit great world, whereas the mortals sent by the great infinite demon ancestor descended directly into other worlds, equivalent to transmigrators. This indicated that Guan's mode of arrival differed from theirs. However, he could ascertain that the earth from his previous life was indeed within the grasp of the great infinite demon ancestor. The form of the great infinite demon ancestor was immensely vast, even larger than the sum of all heavenly Tao spaces. Guan could affirm that the great infinite demon ancestor had already become a saint. Yet, he seemed fearful of stepping into the chaos, thus could only probe it in this manner. Before the 3 train cars landed, Guan watched as the great infinite demon ancestor sent out another dozen Earth mortals, some heading to the past, others to the future. Only those train cars remained in Guan's current timeline. He withdrew his gaze, no longer looking at the great infinite demon ancestor, to avoid disturbing him. Unexpectedly, outside the chaos, such a terrifying existence was eyeing the chaos. Guan felt there were mysteries within the chaos he was not aware of. He stood up, stored away the wooden carving in his hand, and walked out of the courtyard. He intended to find a quiet place to contemplate the mysteries of the chaos. Several days later, Guan had just finished picking medicinal herbs and was heading toward the mountain of no end. On the way, he began to observe the dozens of Earth mortals sent by those 3 train cars. These mortals had already landed. They found themselves on a barren Earth, though they faced no threat from demon beasts. Yet for survival, they fell into internal strife. The food inside the train cars was consumed. Wherever they walked, without years of journeying, it would be hard to reach any town. In half a month, some cultivators would pass through their location and take any surviving people into an immortal cultivation sect. Ultimately, out of this group of Earthlings, only 8 survived. Among the 8, 6 couldn't withstand the torment of time, dying along the path of immortal cultivation. Only 2 were able to ascend to central heaven. Guan paid them such close attention because he too was once an Earthling. Witnessing these Earthlings' ordeal, Guan felt deeply fortunate. Had he not possessed the ability to evolve his lifespan, it would have been challenging to survive to this day. In this life, he was born into the Ji family and successfully entered the Supreme Sect. How lucky, then, to look at these people who did nothing wrong but experienced so many hardships. Guan raised his right hand. A bronze dagger appeared in his hand, which he then broke into a handle and a blade, throwing them casually forward. The handle and blade plummeted towards the soil, yet before touching the ground, they fell into the 3,000 great worlds. Guan had embedded divine skills within the handle and blade, and if united, they could exhibit the formidable strength of a Tao treasure. These 2 items landed in the hands of the 2 destined to ascend to central heaven. Without Guan's intervention, they could also ascend to central heaven. Guan's actions could enhance their achievements, while also sowing the seeds of resolving enmity. According to the original fate, during the long years, these 2 experienced too many events, ultimately parting ways and even becoming adversaries. A pity in Guan's eyes. What should have been the closest 2, through worldly misunderstandings, ended up on divergent paths, becoming each other's nemesis. In the future, under the manipulation of the great infinite demon ancestor, more Earthlings would be sent directly to central heaven. The great infinite demon ancestor continually sent people. There must be some calculation, and Guan helping these 2 was also an attempt to discern the great infinite demon ancestor's ambition from them. Guan did not halt his pace. When he saw his handle and blade picked up by the 2, a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. These 2 were childhood friends, growing up together and went to work in the same city, only to be swept away by a mysterious force while returning home into the 3,000 great worlds. When the dozens of passengers in the train car turned on each other, they clung tightly together, even rallying others, ultimately becoming the leaders of this group of Earthlings. At this moment, in the wilderness, a young man in a white shirt and jeans held the blade handle single-handedly, lifting it above his head. Bathed in sunlight, he squinted to make out the tiny etchings on the handle. Wei Yi, this blade is amazing. I used it to cut through rock like it was tofu. Next to him came an excited male voice, as a crew-cut youth in a black tank top with tattooed arms shouted. His build was more robust than the youth in the white shirt. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:18. Kindred spirits, the man in the white shirt, known as Wei Yi, turned his head to look. His lips were chapped, and his face was pale. He said helplessly, "Luan, save your strength, don't faint later." Luan held a blade less than 20 centimeters long, as if it were a treasure, repeatedly comparing it to a large stone nearby, which made Wei Yi feel both angry and amused. Wei Yi stuffed the knife handle in his hand into his trouser pocket and came to Lu N's side, saying, "Let's go. We should continue to look for food. If we can't find any, not only will there be trouble, but we'll starve to death as well." Hearing this, Lu N nodded. He carefully held the blade, afraid of getting cut. The two of them picked a direction and walked. "Wei Yi, where do you think we are? In the Northwest's uninhabited area, or have we gone abroad?" "I'm not sure either. Maybe we are no longer on Earth." "Really? Have we traveled through time and space?" "Anyway, I think this place is weird. Every night I feel like someone is watching our carriage." The two chatted sporadically. Their fear of the unfamiliar land had lessened significantly due to their hunger. Even if a fierce beast appeared before them, they would fight. Wei Qing and Lu En, who came from Earth, stumbled into a great thousand worlds immortal cultivation realm. For Gu and decades were fleeting, but for them, it was an agonizing time. The 8 Earthlings who survived were taken by cultivators to their sect, but only Wei Qing was found to have good talent for immortal cultivation. The other 7 spent their lives struggling to achieve anything. Initially, Wei Qing would protect them, but he often had to go into seclusion. After being bullied by a group of disciples, Lu En decided to leave the sect solo. Eventually, he joined the demon sect, practicing evil skills, and formally embarked on the cultivation path. When the two met again, they were in opposition, belonging to justice and evil. Wei Qing from Earth wasn't that rigid. Seeing Lu En, he was still happy and sympathized with Lu An's reasons for joining the demon sect. Unfortunately, their relationship could only remain hidden from then on. Gu En wrote their stories into a book for interested disciples to read. One day, another outsider arrived on the continent, making the Wuxia disciples vigilant once more. With prior experience, the disciples became more composed. Simultaneously, Gu En stood on the mountaintop, watching the 7 demon emperors besieging the supreme demon god. The supreme demon god was transformed from the heavenly emperor. As a being who once reached the realm of mixed element profound venerable immortal, even if his cultivation level had dissipated and he had to start anew, he was not inferior to the 7 demon emperors. In the first decisive battle, he forcibly killed a demon emperor, causing others to retreat with clipped wings. The news spread across the land, causing panic among all living beings. Meanwhile, the human race, upon hearing the news, became more unscrupulous. Gradually, to the spirits of central heaven, the human race seemed like evil demons, and all living beings feared them. If this continued and the immortal gods did not take action, no one in central heaven could stop the supreme demon god. The supreme demon god roamed the 8 directions, devouring the mana of great powers everywhere, prompting some in the human race to imitate him. The innate humans of central heaven had unparalleled talent and exceptional comprehension. They created various evil cultivation techniques to devour others' mana, chi power, and divine sense, exaggerating their cultivation speed. In the subsequent years, all living beings clearly felt the human race's growth speed, and they felt immense pressure. The visitor to the continent was not from the human race. He merely transformed into a human form. Initially frightened by so many gathered on the continent, he thought he had stumbled into the human race's territory, only to find that the humans here were not as ruthless as those he encountered before and were even quite enthusiastic. His arrival brought the Wuxia disciples much news about the world's great matters, and the disciples also let him realize that not all humans were inherently cruel. Several days later, Zizai came to the mountain of no end to visit Gu En. Gu En was practicing calligraphy under a tree. Facing Zizai's greeting, he merely nodded slightly without speaking. "Ancestor, will the supreme demon god, causing chaos in the world, come to our continent? And Zizai asked. Guan replied, maybe. If he does come, with outside guests on the continent, what should we do? And Zizai asked again, his brow furrowed, eyes full of anxiety. These days he gained new insights into Central Heaven. He found that the Wuxia disciples no longer had to pretend and had started to lag behind the Central Heaven spirits. The spirits of Central Heaven had exceptional qualities, not to mention those powerful enough to roam the world. From birth, they reached heights unattainable for others. With me here, why worry? Guan answered lightly and then paused his actions. He looked up at Nzizai, smiled, and continued. Since you recognize the gap and feel the pressure, then strive to cultivate. This continent is vast, and there's no need for everyone to wait together to host outsiders. Cultivate well. And Zizai looked at the ancestor, frowning and asking, can we really catch up? When they first arrived in Central Heaven, there were no spirits in sight. At that time, the disciples had a transcendent attitude observing all things. But now, their cultivation level was insignificant in Central Heaven. Watching those spirits be born and surpass them, the disciples were somewhat struck and felt lost. Many things, if you look at them after 10,000 years or 1,000,000 years, the situation might be different. You can only control yourself. Throughout history, there have been countless geniuses and great powers, but few can survive for long. Guan spoke earnestly. Talent wasn't something he could change. The Wuxia disciples came from the celestial spirit great world, which did not count as first class even among the 3,000 great worlds. How could their talent compare with the Central Heaven spirits, who were at the center of the heavenly Tao? Being around Gu and the disciples' insight into the great Tao continually grew. While they might not deeply feel it now, upon achieving enlightenment in the future, they would understand the importance of enlightenment. The Central Heaven spirit's talent was strong, but when they hit the bottleneck of attaining the Daluo Tao fruit, they would encounter obstacles. Enlightenment relies not only on innate comprehension but also on acquired creation. After listening to Guan, Nzizai took a deep breath, raised his hand respectfully, and said, I understand. I will ensure they cultivate well without slacking. Guan laughed and said, being surpassed by local spirits isn't necessarily a bad thing. At least when you disguise yourself, it won't be so exhausting since you are originally not as good. This remark left Nzizai unsure of how to respond, so he could only smile wryly. Nzizai looked at the paper on the table before Guan and saw two names. Curiously, he asked, Ancestor, who are Wei Qing and Luan? Guan replied, two destined individuals who will come to us in the future. The reason he wrote their names was partly out of idleness and partly to probe deeper into the causes and effects between these two and the great infinite demon ancestor through repeated writing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 919. The Justice of the Human Race, a Fated Person? Then they must be very formidable, right? And Nzizai looked at the two names on the paper and sighed, thinking, for the ancestor to personally write their names, they must be extraordinary. Wei Yi, Luan. And Nzizai remembered these two names. He didn't know when these two would come to Central Heaven. After spending a long time with Guan, he also understood what to ask and what not to ask. Matters concerning the future should not be inquired about, while past events could be freely discussed. After finding solace with the ancestor, Nzizai bid farewell with a courtesy, preparing to inform the other disciples to focus on their cultivation. Although Guan had closed the lifespan dojo, his Tao intent enveloped this land, allowing him to perfectly avoid cause and effect deductions. Unless the immortal gods came here personally, even then, he could erase the memories of the immortal gods. He currently still preferred this secluded life. Compared to constant fighting, life held many interesting things. Playing chess with others, traveling through mountains and waters, fishing in rivers, painting by the mountainside and waterside, and so on, each having its own unique joy. He could also find the true meaning of the great Tao and comprehend it amidst these pleasures. The saints can already harness the great Tao, but the great Tao is vast, continuously creating transformations, endlessly born. The saints' enlightenment still aids in cultivation, but their angles and perspectives of enlightenment have changed. After Nzazai left, Gu and continued writing names, practicing his calligraphy. The spring breeze blew by, and the river of time in central heaven kept extending. 1,000,000 years later, central heaven became silent. Above the sea of clouds, Li Xuanmiao, wearing the white robe of an immortal monarch, stood shoulder to shoulder with several other immortal monarchs. They were gazing at the mortal world, discussing. This supreme demon god has already gained momentum and cannot be stopped. Naturally, as he was once the son of heaven who held power in the celestial court. I wonder what his majesty is thinking. Could it really be that he lets him run amok? At this rate, the perfect creation by Hall Master Taihao will be destroyed. Indeed, central heaven possesses more creation than other realms, being able to become a significant force of the celestial court. It is said that His Majesty ceded power to Heavenly Emperor Taishang because Heavenly Emperor Taishang is stronger. One immortal monarch had barely finished speaking when he was glared at by the others, quickly silencing him. 3 feet overhead dwells the divine, and even immortal gods fear, because in their hearts, the celestial emperor is heaven, and heaven is everywhere, naturally able to see them. Although Li Xuanmiao did not participate in the discussion, he deeply despised the supreme demon god. Back then, Heavenly Emperor Taishang brought calamity to the 3,000 great worlds, slaughtering countless living beings. Large regions fell because of him, causing Li Xuanmiao to be filled with anger and hostility towards him. Now, seeing Heavenly Emperor Taishang descend again, bringing harm to new worlds, his animosity reached its peak, wishing to personally descend and exterminate him. Even though this supreme demon god possessed power comparable to some immortal monarchs, Li Xuanmiao would absolutely charge at the front if ordered. The immortal monarchs, having mentioned the celestial emperor, fell into silence. When they first arrived, their anticipation dissipated, for with the mischief of the supreme demon god, their subsequent immortal positions would not be peaceful. After a while, an immortal monarch spoke, "Let's go. It's time to find a place to establish a dojo." The other immortal monarchs nodded, and Li Xuanmiao also followed them, flying away from the direction of the supreme demon god. Before descending to the lower realm, there was already a celestial order informing them not to confront the supreme demon god. Initially, they were curious as to which demon god could command Sangtian not to let them touch him. They never thought this demon god was the reincarnated son of heaven, making them realize their upcoming years would be walking on thin ice. When the immortal gods descended, no phenomena manifested, for even they did not dare give hope to all living beings. In these 1,000,000 years, all powerful beings who vocally opposed the supreme demon god vanished, all stripped of their cultivation by him. There were undoubtedly many great powers still existing in secret, but no one dared resist him openly. The human race took the opportunity to proliferate greatly. People spread across the world, showing signs of becoming masters of heaven and earth. News of the supreme demon god grew less, not because he paused, but because there were few opponents to make him fight with all his might. Now he could subdue opponents within 3 moves, so naturally no news would spread. But on this day, the supreme demon god faced an opponent he found hard to harm. Under the blue sky, amidst flying sand and stones, on the cliffs above a gorge stood 2 figures. One was the supreme demon god, his head full of disheveled white hair, wearing a black and red long robe, with an aura of evil condensed into blood-like energy surrounding him. His eyes carried a dark red, faintly showing blood threads, looking overwhelmingly sinister. The other was Wuxia, who once visited the white-haired ancestor with Heavenly Emperor Taishang. Wuxia was already an innate golden immortal. Across the world, his cultivation wasn't much, yet he still came to confront the supreme demon god. Looking at the supreme demon god, Wuxia found it difficult to associate him with that supreme Taoist friend. His eyes were complex, myriad words dissipated in his heart. At this moment, he felt no need to say anything, as the other's aura already spoke volumes. The supreme demon god indeed had many words to say, and he spoke. "You also belong to the human race, Why stop me? Though all living beings see me as a demon, I am the justice the human race pursues. I have never harmed people and even helped many, leading the human race to prosperity. Wuxia said calmly, "That was the human race of Central Heaven. Your deeds have not been kind to me. I cultivate in Central Heaven, benefiting from its creation, and have the responsibility to maintain the order of heaven and earth." The supreme demon god smiled and said, "My cultivation has reached the Miaozhen Daluo immortal realm. Do you know the gap between us? After your breakthrough is the heaven-balancing golden immortal. Above that is the Taiqing golden immortal, and above Taiqing golden immortal is the heaven-opening Daluo immortal. Above the heaven-opening Daluo immortal is my realm." Listening to his words, Wuju's gaze subtly changed, yet his face still showed a resolute color. The supreme demon god stared at Wuxia, coldly saying, "With just a thought, you would vanish to ashes. What gives you the courage to fight me? What are you thinking? Gambling on my mercy and nostalgia?" Boom! The cliffs on both sides instantly shattered, and the entire world darkened. Wuxia floated in midair, his entire body tense, instinctively feeling fear. His eyes widened, and his forehead covered in cold sweat. He couldn't believe how powerful the supreme demon god was. Suddenly, the supreme demon god appeared before him, striking his face with a palm. Instantly, his sight plunged into darkness, and then Wuxia lost consciousness. What seemed like an eternity passed. Wuxia abruptly opened his eyes. He instinctively sat up, finding himself amid ruins, surrounded by debris. He reached for his body, discovering even his robe was unharmed. He looked toward the horizon, his expression turning complex. "You speak so ruthlessly. Why spare my life?" Wuxia murmured to himself, sighing involuntarily. The reason he dared to confront the supreme demon god naturally was that he had his backing. He had the method of reincarnating and reviving, and could become stronger for it, intending to test the supreme demon god's might first. Yet the supreme demon god spared him, unsettling his heart once more. Whatever righteousness there was, Wuxia cared more about his own feelings. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 920. An immortal encounter on a deserted island. Gu and observed Martial Resolution's predicament with a slight shake of his head, thinking Martial Resolution was too arrogant. Martial Resolution's method of resurrection and rebirth was insignificant in the face of absolute realm disparity. Not to mention the supreme demon god was once a primordial, profound, venerable immortal, able to see through his Taoist technique at a glance. The supreme demon god did not kill Martial Resolution, which made Gu and somewhat relieved. Ever since being defeated, the supreme underwent great changes, making amends with the 3,000 great worlds, and even sparing those he once befriended. Of course, this change wasn't enough for Gu and to help alter his doomed fate. For those beings destroyed by the Heavenly Emperor Supreme, who altered their fates. Gu would at most take care of Martial Resolution, but was too lazy to comment on Martial Resolution's thoughts. What mattered to him was his relationship with Martial Resolution, not Martial Resolution's views on other matters, as long as he didn't commit too many evils. Moreover, Martial Resolution's power was insufficient to affect the Supreme Demon God. The downfall of the Supreme Demon God would also impact Martial Resolution, giving him a deeper understanding of the heavenly Tao. Gu walked down the mountain, intending to visit the city built by the Wuxia disciples. Nowadays, outsiders wander this continent daily, and the Wuxia disciples have found a way. They have truthfully arranged tasks for themselves, each with time to rest and cultivate. Of course, they're not swapping duties every day or two, but every 10 or 20 years, which makes many returnees feel the passage of time. So far, no outsider has managed to stay. They fail to see through the Wuxia disciples' disguise, but sense a feeling of detachment that makes it difficult for them to remain. Some beings are intrigued by this phenomenon, but later mysteriously feel compelled to leave. At first, the Wuxia disciples did not notice anything, but as more beings came and went, they gradually realized it was the ancestors' handiwork. To silently change others' thoughts, what kind of cultivation level, what kind of divine skills would that require? They couldn't comprehend it, but that didn't stop their longing. As people came and went, the Wuxia disciples gradually became less tense, able to calmly handle all arrivals. 2 million disciples, none yet discovered. Of course, the primary reason is still that the outsiders have too elevated a cultivation level. Even if the Wuxia disciples revealed their true cultivation level, they remain overlooked. The real test lies ahead. The blood sacrifice clan achieves the immortal position of a few, while the human race succeeds, but countless generations become mortal spirit, with any prosperity leading to decline. Is this your heavenly Tao? Guwen walked through the forest, gazing at the magnificent mountains and rivers beyond, speaking softly to himself. His words revealed the fate of the Central Heaven human clan. When the human race can truly unify Central Heaven, it marks the moment of their decline, as the immortal gods allow no race to unify Central Heaven, a rule differing from the 3,000 Great Worlds. The 3,000 Great Worlds are unified by the human race with the highest wisdom roots, but the human cultivators, due to excessive intelligence and ambition, overshadowing mortal spirits' faith in the immortal gods, incur their displeasure. Guwen traveled down the mountain, passing through the Taoist field of the beginningless, feeling as if entering the mortal world, where people toil, transport the escort vehicle, herd cattle, making it hard to believe this is Central Heaven. After leaving the Taoist field, Guwen arrived at a deserted island, located far from the Taoist field. Even a free immortal needs many years to cross the sea. He personally built a pavilion on the island, moving slowly without using mana, spending several days. The pavilion is halfway up the mountain. Outside the courtyard is a cliff with views of the expansive ocean. Once the pavilion was completed, Guwen descended to the beach, seeing a large sea turtle crawling on the sand. Attempting to come ashore, the waves washing over it, its shell a deep gray, seemingly inscribed with patterns, appearing as profound as an array map. This sea turtle is a lowly being of Central Heaven, comparable in strength to a free immortal, yet lacking the divine skills of a free immortal, unable to undergo transformation. Since the human race's rise, the lowest talent of Central Heaven's beings has continually declined, while the highest talent has continually risen. In the future, many beings who fail to achieve free immortal will spread across the earth, even mortal spirit appearing, making the disparity in status and rank even more pronounced. Guwen stopped the sea turtle, which looked at him with vacant eyes, then slowly moved aside, wanting to avoid him. Before Guwen, this sea turtle was like a small mountain, yet it dared not collide with him. If Guwen hadn't seen through its flesh, he might think it was aged. But in reality, relative to its long lifespan, it was still in its youth, and its future self could grow to be 100,000 zhang tall, supporting continents, classified as an ancient fierce beast. Guwen's lips curled up and appeared out of nowhere on the turtle's shell. Instantly, the turtle sank, its limbs struggling, but unable to advance further, growing anxious, its claws stirring up a whirl of sand, but to no avail. Finally, it stopped, as if falling asleep. Guwen sat on the turtle's shell. Days passed with the sun setting and moon rising. Pressed by Guwen, it struggled occasionally before succumbing to slumber, repeating the cycle. Several months later, a black fissure appeared on the beach behind Guwen, and a silhouette fell out, crashing onto the sand in a pitiful state. This was a bloodied man, his breath weak, lying on the ground with a slight gasp, consciousness lingering. Guwen appeared oblivious to his presence, not turning, still meditating. Yet the turtle below sensed the commotion, turning to look, its neck surprisingly dragon-like, extending beyond the shell, seeing the situation behind. When it spotted the grievously injured man, it hesitated for a moment. Then it suddenly noticed someone seated on its shell, its eyes widening, and in a blink, it retreated into its shell with limbs withdrawn. This action was starkly different from its usual sluggishness, amusing Guwen. He opened his eyes, stood up, turning to approach. Leaping from the turtle's shell, he reached the injured man's side. He halted before the injured man, not crouching, but gently stroking his chin, observing the injured man closely. Guwen raised his head with difficulty. His face mangled with only clear eyes, lifting to look at Guwen, eyes pleading. Help! Help! Luwen spoke painfully, unable to utter the word me. Guwen looked down on him, asking, If I save you, you must serve as a slave for 10 million years. Do you accept? 10 million years? Luwen's gaze froze, startled by the duration. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 921. Obsession with revenge 10 million years? How long would that be? Luwen has already lived for over 1 million years, but 10 million years is still an unreachable time for him. He can feel his vitality slipping away, death approaching him, so powerless that he cannot even rise. This fear prevents him from weighing his options for too long. I am willing, Luwen said with difficulty, his whole body trembling, using what little strength he had left. Guwen's lips curled into a smile as he looked down at him, waving his sleeve. Immediately, Luwen felt sleepiness surging like a tide, his eyelids drooping. Covered in blood, Luwen fell into a deep sleep, his injuries healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Luwen had a dream. He dreamt of reuniting with his childhood friend Wei Yi, who questioned him about killing the righteous Dao leader and his daughter. He explained that he had been manipulated, a force controlling his body, causing him to slay his enemies, but Wei Yi did not believe him and said the world was about to face unprecedented turmoil, and he was the culprit of it all. Wei Yi's look of disappointment and anger deeply hurt him, jolting him awake suddenly. He opened his eyes to a blue celestial vault, sitting up instinctively, only to see a giant turtle as large as a small mountain lying in front of him, staring at him. Startled, he jumped up, prepared for battle. However, his movements frightened the turtle, causing it to retract into its shell. Luwen was taken aback, then realized his wounds were healed. He touched his body, finding it intact. The memories before he fainted surfaced in his mind, and he looked around instinctively, wanting to find the mysterious person who saved him. Soon, he noticed a pavilion halfway up the mountain. Using his divine sense to investigate, he found no signs of anyone. The spiritual energy here, how is it possible? Luwen widened his eyes, breathing rapidly. He had never felt such dense spiritual energy, not even in the dojos of those holy lands. Moreover, he felt the heavens filled with majestic Tao intent, making his mind and body feel at ease. What kind of place is this exactly? His divine sense swept outwards, seeing only an endless ocean. There wasn't even a continent, nor could he spot any other islands, as if this was the only island between heaven and earth. Thinking about being a slave for 10 million years, he couldn't help but take a deep breath, trying to adjust his mindset. After standing there for a while, he decided to climb the mountain to take a look. Soon, he walked into the courtyard halfway up the mountain. As soon as he stepped in, he stopped in his tracks, shocked to see a man in white preparing to split firewood in the courtyard. What is going on? His divine sense clearly hadn't detected this person, and even now, he couldn't sense the man's presence. Well experienced, Luwen was only momentarily stunned, then bowed and cupped his fists in salute to Guwen, saying in a deep voice, "Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. May I know your name?" "My name isn't important. What's important is who you are," Guwen retorted casually. According to the original fate, Luwen would take 1 billion years to arrive at Central Heaven. He appeared early because he met a fatal calamity. Guwen rescued him, bringing him to Central Heaven. The great infinite demon ancestor continuously sent mortals to the heavenly Tao as variables, attracting the attention of the eternal Tao extreme. They were unaware of the demon ancestor's existence, but by chance, discovered Luwen was a heavenly Tao variable, so they intended to possess Luwen. In that battle, Luwen was completely outmatched, and Guwen didn't kill those beings, only rescuing Luwen. Luwen thought it was the divine skills tearing through time and space, inadvertently bringing him here. "I am named Luwen, from the Nanjiang continent," Luwen replied promptly. Seeing that Guwen had no intention to introduce himself, he boldly asked, "Senior, I agreed to be your slave for 10 million years. May I avenge first? I'm afraid my enemy might reach their end by that time. He spoke sincerely as he truly thought this way. Though 10 million years sounded arduous, following such a transcendent being, even as a slave, would surely yield benefits. Alone in that world, what hatred drives you so urgently? Guwen picked up the axe, splitting wood as he answered nonchalantly. Luwen gritted his teeth. That person killed someone important to me. I must avenge them. With your current cultivation level, you can't exact revenge. Guwen's tone remained indifferent, yet carried an undeniable authority. Luwen fell silent. He began weighing the pros and cons, contemplating whether to forcibly escape, but doing so would violate his principles. Moreover, he might not even be able to escape. Build yourself a place to live on the island, Guwen said leisurely, hearing which Luwen showed an expression of unwillingness. Even though unwilling, he didn't choose to act against Guwen. He stepped forward and asked beside Guwen, "Senior, may I help you first?" Guwen did not refuse, handing him the axe, and instructed him to chop the wood piled up in the courtyard before turning to leave. At the courtyard gate, he stopped and seemed to remember something. Turning back to Luwen with a smile, "I almost forgot. Live as a mortal on the island from now on." As he finished speaking, he waved his sleeve towards Luwen, who couldn't avoid it. He only felt a gentle breeze on his face. The next second, his expression changed drastically as his mana dissipated. Not only that, but even his cultivation level vanished. He could no longer view his internal state, nor did he have divine sense, and even his chi power became feeble. Before he could speak, Guwen left the courtyard. Luwen opened his mouth but ultimately chose to continue splitting wood. Walking on the mountain path, Guwen showed a look of appreciation. Though Luwen had entered the Demon Dao, his character was far steadier than Wei Yi's. Wei Yi remained naive and idealistic due to his experiences, whereas every choice Luwen made was well considered. Thinking back to when the two first arrived at the Heavenly Dao, Luwen was much more lively compared to Wei Yi. As time passed, it seemed their personalities had swapped. Guwen started to look forward to what waves Luwen would stir upon returning to the 3,000 Great Worlds in 10 million years. He didn't calculate to leave himself some suspense. And so, day by day passed. Luwen, having lost his cultivation level, couldn't escape even if he wanted. He hoped his demeanor would prompt Guwen to release him sooner, but as time went by, even his greatest patience was wearing thin. 10 years later, on a stormy night, Luwen stood before the pavilion of the courtyard, gritting his teeth. "Senior, I beseech you once more, release me to go back. After I take my revenge, I swear I will return." Boom! The sound of thunder erupted, overpowering even the noise of the rain. Guwen's voice drifted from inside the house. "With your current capability, how do you plan to take revenge? Do you know what kind of place this is? Or how you'd return after going back? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 922. The Legend of Central Heaven. Upon hearing Guwen's words, Luwen did not hesitate. He firmly said, "Even without my cultivation level, I will find a way to take revenge. I have a backup plan somewhere." "You want to rely on that magical treasure?" Guwen's voice floated out, and Luwen's pupils suddenly shrank, his body involuntarily trembling. He was truly shocked. How did this senior know he was hiding a supreme treasure? Was he bluffing? No matter what you rely on, after saying so for thousands of years, then you must stay for thousands of years. Guwen's words rang out again, causing Luwen to furrow his brows, his expression turning grim. Luwen raised his hand, wanting to open the door and enter, but his hands dared not lay on the door. Even if his cultivation level was still there, he wouldn't be a match for this senior. If he offended the other party, the other might directly kill him. If he died, what was the point of revenge? After struggling for a while, Luwen ultimately lowered his head and left. The torrential rain soaked him, and his figure quickly disappeared into the night. After that night, Luwen never mentioned revenge again. Every day he would find Guin, waiting for him to assign tasks. Guin never let him idle, making him chop wood continuously. Luin did not refuse and chopped wood every day. He noticed that despite all the wood he chopped, there weren't many new buildings on the island. He understood that this was a test from the senior. The senior saved him not to merely toy with him. Unable to return for revenge was indeed regretful, but at least he was alive. He did not resent Guin for it, maintaining reverence and gratitude in his heart. The longer he stayed on the island, the fewer stray thoughts Luin had. He gradually found meaning in staying, choosing to start over even though his cultivation level was lost. Thus, 1,000 years swiftly passed. Luin continued chopping wood. His cultivation level recovered somewhat but was far from its peak. Guin most of the time stayed within the pavilion, and Luin dared not disturb him recklessly. Until one day a cultivator flew in, landing on the island. Luin, who was meditating while facing the sea, stood up to look at him. "Are you a human race member? Why are you alone on this isolated island?" The cultivator frowned and asked. He appeared to be in his 30s, wearing a cyan robe and looked stern. As soon as he frowned, Luin felt the overwhelming pressure. Alone? Luin couldn't discern the other's cultivation level. His intuition told him that the person before him was stronger than anyone he had met, excluding the senior on the island. Such a formidable presence couldn't sense the senior's existence. How high must the senior's cultivation level be? "I crossed space, was severely injured, and lost my cultivation level, resting on this island," Luin answered, not revealing the presence of Guin. The cyan-robed Taoist immediately understood and said, "So you are an ascender. No wonder you are so weak. Your luck was quite good to land on this island. If you landed elsewhere, surviving would have been difficult." Ascender. Luin caught onto the critical information and hurriedly asked, "May I ask, Senior, where is this place in the heavens?" "This is Central Heaven. Don't know if you have heard about it. Over the long years, there have always been cultivators from the lower realms ascending. Nowadays, the world is not peaceful. Staying on this island can be a blessing," the cyan-robed Taoist answered. Luin felt as if struck by lightning, eyes wide open. Central Heaven. He had heard of this place from an elder. It was said Central Heaven was an immortal realm every cultivator aspired to reach. Only by ascending to Central Heaven could one hope to join the immortal class. The greatest wish of that elder was to ascend to Central Heaven. He actually arrived in Central Heaven. No wonder the spiritual energy here was so abundant. The cyan-robed Taoist slightly shook his head, then took out a secret manual and tossed it onto the beach. He leapt, turning into a sword light and disappearing into the sky. Luin snapped back to reality, picking up the secret manual. Supreme Qi Absorption Technique? Luin read the words on the cover, secretly amazed that the human race's language in Central Heaven was the same as in the realms he came from. The word supreme made him feel something extraordinary. He showed a hint of delight, as if obtaining a treasure, turning to head back to his residence. Over the past 1,000 years, with constant repairs, his residence now had 2 stories. He lived on the 2nd floor, with the 1st floor storing exotic treasures he collected, most washed ashore by the sea, considered rare material by him. That turn marked the passing of 10,000 years. 10,000 years later, Central Heaven was still dominated by the human race. All beings of heaven and earth feared humans who were insatiably expanding their territory, leaving nothing but massacre in their wake. The territory of the demon race was surpassed by the human race for the first time, especially with the supreme demon god seeking out demon race great powers everywhere. More human race cultivators passed through the Wuxia continent, while demon beings grew scarcer. Even disciples confined to the continent could sense the dire world trend. Human race cultivators' arrogance was thinly veiled, felt even in conversation. By now, humans firmly believed themselves to be the masters of heaven and earth. Guin stood on a cliff, gazing towards distant cities. At the present, a human cultivator was lecturing at the Taoist field of the beginningless. This was the first instance of such a situation. Though Wuxia disciples were inwardly uncomfortable, they refrained from showing it. An innate golden immortal dares to lecture. Those disciples truly have patience. Xinzhen came beside Guan, remarked in amazement. Now, all second-generation disciples had achieved innate golden immortal status, and exceptional disciples from each generation had as well. In total, there were over 108 golden immortals within the beginningless, a remarkable number, making it a powerful force among the 3,000 great worlds. What of it? Even among those of the same realm, it's worthwhile to listen to others' Taoist techniques. Everyone's path is different. If someone is willing to lecture, it's a good fortune. Guan lightly chuckled. Today, his mood was fine as he decided to abolish Lu An's cultivation level and begin teaching him cultivation anew. In comparison to millions of years, the years Lu An wasted were insignificant. You earlier said that humanity would decline at its zenith. Can it be considered at its peak now? Xinzhen turned to observe Guan's profile, curiously asking. Guan lifted his head to gaze at the celestial vault, replying, "It can be considered so. Soon, an astonishing battle will erupt, marking a turning point for central heaven." Hearing this, Xinzhen showed an expression of anticipation, wondering if the immortal gods would intervene. At dusk, in the courtyard, "Senior Yu?" Luan trembled all over, painfully looking at Guan. Even his resolute spirit was filled with resentment at this moment, as Guan had again, with a sweep of his sleeve, dissipated his cultivation level. The supreme qi absorption technique was far more powerful than his previous cultivation technique. The progress of millennia made him very happy, but today, all was for naught. If Guan did not permit him to have a cultivation level, why didn't he say so earlier? Must he toy with him? That was millennia of work. Just like that, gone. Luan clenched his fists, eyes red, glaring at Guan sat on the steps, leisurely, with both hands on the ground, smiling. "Your cultivation technique is too inferior. How about I teach you how to cultivate? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 923. Battle with the demon god. Hearing Guan's words, Luan, who was previously angry, froze for a moment as immense joy quickly enveloped his heart. The grievance of 10,000 years of effort dissipating vanished entirely, and he instinctively wanted to kneel before Guan, but he hesitated just as he bent his knees. He carefully observed Guan, and under the twilight, Guan's face was obscured by the eaves, making it difficult for him to discern his exact expression. Could this be yet another jest? Guan said leisurely, "Before you came to Central Heaven, your cultivation technique was already a mistaken path. You should have felt that once you get angry, it's very hard to control your emotions. You think there's another force manipulating you, but in truth, no one is plotting against you. It's just that your cultivation technique is flawed. It was a trap from the start. As for the supreme qi absorption technique, its creator will fall soon, and all who are bound by cause and effect with it will suffer the punishment of heaven. Counting this way, I've actually saved you 3 times. Luan widened his eyes, his expression shifting between gloom and brightness. After a moment of thought, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed heavily toward Guan, the great grace of the senior. This junior will never forget. Luan bowed his head, speaking in a deep voice. Guan carelessly replied, "I saved you, taught you, not for repayment, just out of interest. No matter how great your achievements will be in the future, they have nothing to do with me, and you must not reveal our relationship. Just pretend this never happened. Understand?" Luan lifted his head, looking at Guan with confusion. Why does this sound like a scene between Master Pewdie and son Wukong? Luan thought secretly. Even after spending so many years together, he still didn't know how to respond, as he still couldn't grasp Guan's personality and couldn't gauge Guan's likes or dislikes. In daily life, Guan always smiled gently, but when abolishing his cultivation level, he wouldn't hold back, and it was always very sudden. As Guan raised his right hand, Luan's body shrank in fear, instinctively wanting to retreat. Just as he steadied his posture, Guan pointed his index finger at him, immobilizing him entirely, with different figures manifesting and changing stances in his widened pupils. Just like that, Luan embarked on a brand new cultivation path. Guan created a set of unique cultivation techniques, divine skills, escape skills, and more for him. His days became enriched, filled with passion and vigor. Luan cultivated on the beach, accompanied by the sun and moon. Immersed in it, time flew by quickly. After receiving Guan's true teaching, Luan's cultivation speed far surpassed before, completely dispelling the dissatisfaction in his heart. Compared to his current cultivation, everything from before was not worth mentioning. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed by. On this day, Luan was cultivating beside a sea turtle, facing the sea, when suddenly he opened his eyes, frowning. He looked toward the far end of the sea horizon, seeing the celestial vault gradually turning red, and the wind between heaven and earth was intensifying, with spiritual energy becoming restless, making him feel uneasy. The sea turtle beside him opened its eyes, protruding its head and extending its neck, seemingly trying to see what exactly was happening far away. Unfortunately, with Luan's cultivation level, he couldn't detect the source of that terrifying aura. After watching for a while, he closed his eyes, intending to continue his cultivation. But the aura from afar grew increasingly overwhelming, preventing him from calming his heart, with fear and uneasiness in his heart intensifying. Thinking it over, Luan got up and walked toward the mountain. The mountain wasn't high, and it wasn't long before he arrived within the courtyard. He did not see Guan, nor could he sense Guan's presence, but he wasn't surprised. His inability to sense was due to his own insufficient cultivation level. He respectfully bowed toward the pavilion, saying, "Senior, where does this pressure come from? What is about to happen?" Several breaths later, Guan's voice emerged from within the pavilion. "The immortal gods are besieging the supreme demon god." Supreme demon god? Supreme? Luan seemed to think of something, his expression changing slightly, cautiously asking, "Could it be that the supreme chi absorption technique I previously cultivated originated from the supreme demon god?" The words demon god did not sound like good news. He also remembered Guan saying that all those bound by cause and effect with the creator of the supreme chi absorption technique would suffer the punishment of heaven. This compelled him to sympathize with the cultivator who passed on the technique to him. Even though they only chatted briefly, meeting at a whim, that person shared the cultivation technique with him. Such goodwill was rarely encountered. Even though he sympathized, he had no means to offer help. He certainly couldn't ask Guan to save that person. Such an act was too absurd. He was not like his old friend Wei Yi. When he thought of Wei Yi, the gloom in Luan's heart lifted entirely. When he returned to the human world, he would show Wei Yi how formidable he had become. To this day, his relationship with Wei Yi remained good. However, with the eternal conflict between righteousness and demons, they could only maintain contact covertly. Following Guan's cultivation, the demonic chi within him had dissipated. Now, anyone who saw him would find it hard to determine he was a demon cultivator, making him very much look forward to Wei Yi's expression upon seeing him. Luan still wished to inquire more, but thought it over, ultimately deciding to bow and take his leave. When it comes to matters involving the immortal gods, he felt it was wise to ask less to avoid inviting trouble. After he left, Guan took a step back into the Wuxia continent, where a play was about to unfold in the city. He found it very intriguing and wanted to witness it with his own eyes. Because many disciples emulated Guan by writing books, the stories circulating the continent were highly abundant. Therefore, some disciples had a spur-of-the-moment idea to enact these wonderful stories, experiencing the emotions of the characters in the process, and the viewers found it enjoyable. As a result, it became a cultural tradition, unique at least within Central Heaven, with only Wuxia having such a culture. The battle between the immortal gods and the supreme demon god was earth-shattering, with the battle's overwhelming pressure constantly spreading, eventually covering the entire Central Heaven. Above the clouds, Li Xuanmiao and a group of immortal gods gazed down at the great battle unfolding below, the land engulfed in rolling dust, with lightning intersecting everywhere, and gales howling, as if there were a great dragon whirling around. Upon closer inspection, one could vaguely see more than 10 interwoven figures. At the edge of the battlefield stood towering figures, with the celestial Tao golden light forming a grand formation, isolating this battlefield. Though the ground was sinking, it did not extend to the mountains beyond the formation. That Prince Taihao is so powerful. I remember he's the youngest son of heaven, right? Yes, indeed the most junior son of heaven. But for him to earn the name Taihao reflects the emperor's high regard for him. Not only is Prince Taihao formidable, but those immortal gods are also very strong. Judging by their coordination and divine skills, they seem to come from the same immortal sect. Looks like the supreme demon god will end here. The immortal gods in the clouds discussed, while Li Xuanmiao fixated on the rolling dust below, his pupils reflecting the posture of the supreme demon god wielding the demon soldiers. For some reason, Li Xuanmiao felt a sense of unease, as if something dreadful was about to occur. At this moment, a purple light emerged from deep within the dust below, and immediately, the entire world darkened. The surprised immortal gods instinctively looked up, soon fixing their eyes on the celestial vault above. Strange eyes filled the firmament, varying in size, yet each identical, with violet pupils, cold and enigmatic. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 924. The beginning of the myth on the beach. Luan, who had just sat down not long ago, suddenly felt something and opened his eyes abruptly. He looked up to see purple eyes all over the sky, causing him to shiver with fear. What is this? Luan widened his eyes, muttering to himself, his voice full of terror. When he saw the immortal emperor's eye in the sky, the mana within him froze all at once. Even his soul tightened, an indescribable feeling that made him feel insignificant. Is this the power of central heaven? Unbelievable. Facing such power, he felt only awe in his heart. Whether it was the power of the immortal gods or that of the supreme demon god, he did not know. As he was pondering, a burst of golden light blazed across the celestial vault, causing him to squint. Immediately afterwards, he saw the purple eyes all over the sky disappear, and the vast golden light descended like heavenly might. He saw an incomparably huge golden vertical eye, far larger than the previous purple eyes, so large that the entire celestial vault couldn't contain it. Luan was deeply shocked, as if seeing a face in the outer universe spying on the middle heaven world, with the whole of central heaven no bigger than one eye of that existence. Just thinking about it made him shiver from head to foot. The golden vertical eye gazed upon the human world, and at this moment all the Wuxia disciples on Wuxishi continent were looking up at this vertical eye. Guan, who was watching a play within the city, saw the disciples on stage being drawn away by the heavenly might, stopping their performance. He shook his head slightly and rose to leave. His departure caught the attention of some disciples, who thought Guan was going to investigate the situation. After leaving the theater, Guan returned to the mountain of no end. Xinjun was also watching the golden vertical eye on the celestial vault. She did not question Guan, for his return meant that the anomaly in the sky could not affect Wuxia. She stared at the golden vertical eye, beginning to deduce, but unfortunately, she couldn't see anything. The golden vertical eye surveyed all things in heaven and earth, shaking the hearts of all living beings. It seemed to scrutinize all existence on this land, making all living beings feel fear and gradually lowering their heads, not daring to meet its gaze. For a long time, the golden light dissipated, and the heavenly might suppressing all beings vanished. When all beings looked up again, the golden vertical eye had disappeared, and the terrifying aura of the supreme demon god was also gone. This battle seemed to have ended, and the entire world fell into silence. 100 years later, on a lonely island, Guan sat on a turtle shell, guiding Luan to cultivate a set of fist techniques. He repeated the punches, throwing them one by one, seemingly without any special attributes, yet he did not feel bored. While practicing, Luan turned to look at Guan and curiously asked, "Elder, was the supreme demon god killed by the immortal gods?" He had harbored this doubt for a long time and finally couldn't resist asking today. Guan was holding a book, and he replied casually, "Didn't completely die, but now it's worse than death." The supreme demon god was forcefully suppressed by Emperor Taihao, his physical form annihilated and his soul thrown into the heavenly prison, continuously tormented by endless celestial punishment. Thus, all powers of the heavenly Emperor Taihao were reclaimed. The immortal gods who had once been loyal to him began to be investigated, and each day some of them had their immortal positions stripped and were cast into the heavenly prison or reincarnation. One day in heaven equaled a year on earth, and now the celestial court remained in turmoil as the news of the supreme demon god being vanquished by the immortal gods continued to spread through central heaven. Many years later, tales of Taihao slaying the supreme would circulate in central heaven. By then, Taihao would have become the celestial emperor, while the supreme would be depicted as the demon ancestor, the most evil existence in central heaven since antiquity. And those who cultivate the supreme chi absorption technique? Luan asked further. They will die in the future celestial tribulations. This answer secretly startled Luan. Could the heavenly Tao control the celestial tribulation? Guan followed up. Because of the supreme demon god, humans in this realm will be hunted by all races under heaven and earth. If any creatures pass by this island in the future, you'd best hide to avoid getting involved. Luan asked in surprise, "Elder, what about you? Aren't you part of the human race?" Guan did not answer, which made Luan's heart skip a beat. He suddenly realized that he didn't know anything about the elder, not even the elder's name, let alone his true form. Habitually, he presumed all sorts of dangerous situations. The more he thought, the more frightened he became. However, remembering that without Guan's help, he would have already been dead, he immediately let go of his burdens and focused on practicing his punches. This set of fist techniques seemed ordinary, but its sorcery was profound. With each circulation of the week of energy, his physique became stronger, filling him with anticipation for mastering this fist technique. The sea turtle beneath Guan poked its head out, stretching its neck and turning to look. Upon seeing Guan, it retreated back in fright. Luan secretly marveled at this scene. This turtle had powerful chi blood, which even made Luan feel alarmed. Yet, it was so timid that it wouldn't fight. Whenever it saw a living thing, it would retract into its shell. It truly was a curiosity. Previously, he thought this turtle was raised by the elder. Now, it seemed the turtle, like him, was trapped in this place. The sun shone brightly as the world, and its forces changed like the shifting clouds. Hundreds of years later, the news of the supreme demon god being annihilated spread completely, and the world entered even greater chaos as the demon race began slaughtering humans on a large scale. Although humans had high comprehension, their years of cultivation were far less than that of the world's great powers, and without the supreme demon god, they were unable to withstand the wrath of all living beings. In less than 1,000 years, humans were nearly exterminated. Fortunately, some immortal gods stood out in time, announcing to all living beings the prohibition of further killings of humans, thus putting an end to this catastrophe. Even with the warning of the immortal gods in place, the demon race still held profound apprehension towards humans and closely monitored them to prevent their resurgence. The practice of demons eating humans continued daily, albeit not on such a widespread scale. Rumble. Thunderclouds rolled, and one bolt of heavenly lightning after another fell, striking the stormy waves, twisting the space above the ocean. A dark purple spatial rift appeared, growing rapidly, suspended between the sky and sea. Two figures stepped out from within, Zhang Buku and Suyu. The two moved forward in the air, with thousands of lightning bolts falling on them, unable to pose any threat. Suyu walked in the air, looking around and raising an eyebrow. Such a heavy, murderous aura. It seems central heaven just went through a calamity. Zhang Buku showed no expression. He wore a large robe with hair reaching the robe's hem, looking more inscrutable than Suyu. It's the same old war between humans and demons. It seems central heaven is no different from the Great Thousand World. Zhang Buku spoke coldly. He once belonged to a half-human, half-demon race and held great disdain for the hatred between the demon race and the human race. He couldn't understand why two races capable of immortal cultivation had to keep slaughtering each other. Later, he ceased contemplating it. To him, humans and demons were the same. If they dared block his path, he wouldn't hold back. Where do we go next? Suyu turned to look at him, asking with a cheerful smile. After many years of cultivation in the underworld, their relationship had reversed, with Suyu now taking Zhang Buku as the backbone, acting according to Zhang Buku's will. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 925. Inch Island. First, let's meet the great power of the demon race in this realm and see what they are capable of. Zhang Buku stared ahead, answering expressionlessly. Upon hearing this, Suyu's smile became even brighter as he eagerly anticipated Zhang Buku showcasing his strength now. He wanted to see if Central Heaven, known as the center of the heavenly Tao, could withstand Zhang Buku's brilliance. The two stepped forward into the air. Their figures started to shimmer, constantly moving, and soon disappeared beyond the celestial vault. Zhang Buku's arrival was spotted by Guan, who was picking medicinal herbs. Watching the current Zhang Buku, he felt a tinge of emotion. Truly, he seemed like a different person. The Zhang Buku now possessed the demeanor of a great power and carried an intimidating aura. After the conclusion of the battle between immortals and demons, the Nine Nether Emperor was severely wounded, yet the Celestial Emperor bestowed him a chance. The cost was the Celestial Court beginning to take over the underworld. As Central Heaven developed, the Celestial Court also attacked the underworld, establishing the order of ghosts and gods. This time Zhang Buku came to Central Heaven as a rightful representative of the underworld to spread the Tao, leaving behind the legend of the 6 paths of reincarnation. As long as he didn't go too far, the immortal gods wouldn't stop him. If the future remains unchanged, Zhang Buku will become an ancient myth of Central Heaven, his name to be remembered forever. Regardless of how one sees it, Zhang Buku is considered to have attained the Tao. Guan no longer needs to be so concerned for him. It's worth mentioning that Zhang Buku has already found his father Zhang Chuanqiu in reincarnation. Unfortunately, Zhang Chuanqiu has gone through countless cycles of reincarnation and no longer remembers him. Now, he's trying to find a way for Zhang Buku to recall the memories of that lifetime. Senior brother Zhang, who would have thought we'd have the chance to meet again? Guan spoke to himself, a smile on his face as images from long ago surfaced in his eyes. The ghost mother of Ephemera, curious, asked, "Senior brother Zhang? Master, do you have other senior brothers?" All along, she only heard Gu and acknowledged Li Ye as his senior brother. Now hearing of another senior brother Zhang, naturally piqued her curiosity. "Yes, I have 3 senior brothers. Back then, along with senior brother Li Ye, the 4 of us were menial disciples in the profound valley of the outer Taishan sect." Guan began to recount the past. The story was plain, yet to the ghost mother of Ephemera, it felt very heartwarming. Zhang Chuanqiu was steady. Li Ye was cold. Meng Lang lived up to his name, reminding her of the scenes of them playfully bickering. She sighed within, realizing her master truly valued past connections. What did these 3 have to deserve such attention from him? In her view, her master must be an entity that has lived countless years. In this lifetime, he wasn't even reincarnated. Surely, back in the Taishan sect, he was concealing his cultivation level. With unparalleled cultivation, yet able to calmly associate with mortals, what a broad mindset. She always felt it was her master who accommodated Li Ye. Li Ye lacked the qualities she found impressive. Without her master, she doubted Li Ye could even reach the Zizai immortal realm. Of course, she thought the same about herself, which was why she held Guan in such high esteem. Guan could sense her inner thoughts but never pointed them out. Everyone has their own ideas kept secret. Without voicing them, who could blame them? He casually recounted Zhang Buku's story as well, which impressed the ghost mother of Ephemera more than Zhang Chunkius. Half human, half demon, rejected by both races, wandering aimlessly, stirred deep sympathy within the ghost mother of Ephemera, reminding her of herself. So, Zhang Buku came to Central Heaven and even resurrected your senior brother? She curiously asked. Guwen nodded with a smile. She sighed. I wonder how that cultivator Zhang Chuanxiu would react upon learning your true cultivation level. Imagining herself in her master's shoes, she realized he truly had great patience, a quality she should learn. The two conversed as they continued collecting medicinal herbs. Once Guwen finished harvesting herbs, he left alone, with the ghost mother of Ephemera watching him leave with a basket in hand. Guwen walked leisurely through the fields, continuing into the forest until he reached the isolated island where Luan resided. He walked down the mountain path, seeing Lu and cultivating on the beach. Setting all else aside, Lu An's attitude towards cultivation greatly satisfied him. With perseverance and constant effort, along with his Saint Tao intent, how could Lu An not become remarkable? Guwen came to the side of a sea turtle and reached out to stroke its shell. Though the turtle seemed afraid of him, it never left the island. Luan thought it was trapped, but in reality it chose to stay. Perhaps Guan's Tao intent made it feel that staying would bring Fuyuan. Though the turtle couldn't speak, its spiritual intelligence was not shallow, harboring its own thoughts. Do you think I should name this island? Guwen spoke suddenly, startling Luan, who opened his eyes and turned to look at him. Luan's gaze was filled with resentment. Guwen always appeared unpredictably, impossible to detect. Though had been startled before, each time left his heart trembling. He worried that more shocks like these might lead him to demonic possession. Despite feeling wronged inside, he didn't dare express it, following Guwen's words and suggesting, "How about Inch Island?" Guwen found amusement in the name but appeared puzzled, asking, "Why the name Inch?" "Because you resemble Master Pewdie. And aren't you forbidding me from revealing your name?" Thinking to himself, Luan awkwardly replied, "It just came to mind. Inch is good. Within an inch lies the world. Within an inch is the Great Tao. The Great Tao is vast, yet can also be small. From now on, this island shall be called Inch Island." Guwen smiled gently, laughing lightly. He wasn't afraid of coincidental names. Chinese mythology should be fictional. Even if there were real figures, they couldn't be that powerful. Otherwise, how could the great infinite demon ancestor toy with Earth so easily? Noticing Guwen agree to the name, Lu An's expression turned peculiar. Continue cultivating. Make the most of your time. Don't wait till you leave, then regret not cherishing the present. Guwen said lazily, then turned to walk in another direction. He planned to fish on another part of Inch Island. Here, fishing was truly fishing. He was growing fond of this island. He didn't intend to inform the Wuxia disciples of the island's existence, wanting a place to be alone. Watching Guan's back, Luan thought this island would become a holy land someday. He stopped pondering, continuing his cultivation. The senior was right. He had to seize the time. Even if a million years felt far off, he didn't want to miss the chance. Since following Gu and in cultivation, he realized this million-year journey wasn't torment but a rare opportunity hard to come by again. A million years later, Wei Yi should still be alive. Maybe Wei Yi would become a leader of the righteous Tao. Then, when he sought Wei Yi out again, he would surely surprise him greatly. The mere thought of it made Lu Angguang's mouth curve upwards uncontrollably. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 926. Emerging from nowhere after the supreme demon god was annihilated, Central Heaven entered another high-speed development phase. The celestial Tao destiny continued to rise, and every few years, astonishing new beings were born. After experiencing a great massacre, the human race's destiny was severed. Countless human cultivators died during the celestial tribulation, and in terms of talent, each generation was weaker than the last, transforming a once powerful race that struck fear in all living beings into something weak. Because of this weakness, the demon race lowered their guard and no longer focused on the human race, and internal competition began within the demon race. The 7 demon emperors of the demon race each occupied territories, recruited soldiers, and expanded their forces rapidly. As the number of demon soldiers increased, their territories bordered each other, inevitably leading to conflicts. Thus, internal strife began within the demon race. In this grand context, great powers started to establish other races, with the human race's former might still fresh in their memories. Taoist techniques began to flourish, various races were born, and the entire world presented a vibrant vitality. Years flew by like a shuttle. The 10-million-year period for Luwen arrived. Now, he had achieved the level of heaven-encompassing free immortal, just one step away from an innate golden immortal. Such a rapid breakthrough speed was indeed swift. Most importantly, his understanding of the great Tao had surpassed the majority of innate golden immortals. In the future, his path of cultivation would only become smoother. On this day at noon, Luwen was summoned to the courtyard by Guan Lu and did not see Guan in the courtyard. He looked at the tightly closed door, his face darkened, having already prepared mentally. He took a deep breath, stood before the door of the pavilion, and paid his respects respectfully. The 10-million-year period is up. You should go back now. Gather your things. Guan's voice floated out from inside the pavilion, the tone calm. Luwen immediately knelt down and kowtowed heavily 3 times towards the pavilion. He raised his head and asked, "If I ascend to central heaven in the future, may I visit Inch Island to see you? If you can find it, you can naturally come." Hearing Guan's words, Luwen beamed with a smile. He turned and left, his face full of vigor. After these millions of years of cultivation, he had been completely reborn, not just in cultivation level but in character as well. After the time of 1 stick of incense, Luwen, having packed his belongings, stood in front of his building. Looking at the building that had accompanied him for millions of years, his eyes were full of reluctance. After you go back, don't be so extreme, don't trust others too easily, and definitely don't stray off the right path. A voice came from behind him. He saw a blue-robed youth with a turtle shell on his back approaching. The youth had a handsome face, fair skin, like a scholar, exuding an elegant aura. He was the timid sea turtle who took human form millions of years ago and became extremely close to Luwen Lu and had shared all his experiences with him. Luwen turned to the blue-robed youth and laughed. "Xuanwu, you better wait for me. The next time we meet, we must settle who's superior." The blue-robed youth called Xuanwu chuckled softly. "I can't possibly lose to you since I've always been cultivating with the master." The two exchanged a glance and both laughed with high spirits, their sharpness evident. Suddenly, a black crack appeared behind Luwen, and a strong suction pulled him directly inside, causing him to look panicked. Xuanwu saw this scene and couldn't help shaking his head with an amused smile. The master still loved to scare Luwen like this. "Xuanwu, prepare to go fishing with me." Guan's voice floated down from the mountain, and Xuanwu's expression instantly changed from relaxed and carefree to one full of flattering smiles. "All right, master. I'm coming right away." Xuanwu immediately rushed away quickly. The golden light shimmered in the forest of Inch Island as the sunlight poured down. The ocean stretched endlessly, and Inch Island, like a leaf floating on the sea's surface, seemed so inconspicuous, always at risk of being swallowed by the ocean. After Luwen left, Guan's life became more peaceful. He no longer taught others in cultivation but began to gain enlightenment himself. In the ensuing years, Wuxia disciples were discovered by outsiders for hiding something, and in Zizai, adhering to the rules set by Guan, expelled those disciples who were discovered. Some disciples wanted to leave Wuxia on their own. Having heard too much news from the outside world, they also wanted to venture out for themselves. Every disciple who left Wuxia was personally sent off by Nzizai, with the warning to never reveal the cause and effect of Wuxia. Otherwise, no matter where they were, even separated by all heavens, he would clean up the sect. As the Wuxia disciples ventured into the red dust of Central Heaven, the fate of Central Heaven began to show some changes. Such changes were insignificant to the lofty immortal gods. 100 million years became less lengthy for Central Heaven. After 100 million years, the native creatures of Central Heaven achieved the strongest cultivation level of Miaozhen Daluo Immortal Realm, and Taoist lineages began to rise. After tens of millions of years of evolution, the Wuxia continent remained bustling, but now with fewer Wuxia disciples. Here, mortal generations began to inherit the land while Wuxia disciples were integrated within, always hidden. Mountain of No End was shrouded with immortal mist, inaccessible to mortals, and those who forced their way in would find themselves diverted, unable to enter the Taoist field of the beginningless. Now Central Heaven was fully developed, with new ascenders arriving almost daily, and great powers going to Outer Heaven. The universe outside Central Heaven could directly connect to chaos, sparking legends of chaos to begin circulating in the human world. On this day, Guwen was sitting in the courtyard, playing with a stone, which was one of the original stones of Central Heaven, with a long history. Investigation into it could reveal the heavenly Tao behind Central Heaven. The heavenly Tao was created by the Celestial Emperor, but to Guwen, even the Celestial Emperor couldn't see through the entire cause and effect of the heavenly Tao. Perhaps it was because the heavenly Tao originated from Hongmeng. A figure walked into the courtyard, bringing a fragrance. The visitor was none other than Fairy Yaoxian. Fairy Yaoxian remained elegant, as beautiful as a celestial immortal, with an ethereal aura. She approached Guwen and turned to look at Shenzhen, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. Feeling her gaze, Shenzhen opened his eyes and, seeing her expression, knew what she meant to express. Hence, Shenzhen nodded to Fairy Yaoxian and then got up to leave, giving the two a space for solitude. Fairy Yaoxian was the mother of Sin. Her existence extended across ages. Sometimes, she would guide the second-generation disciples, for whom Shenzhen had much respect. After Shenzhen left, Fairy Yaoxian looked at Guwen and said, "Recently, a great emperor has emerged in the world, stunning the heavens. He is called the Emperor of Eternal Life. I want to go and see." Guwen replied casually, "If you want to go, then go. Just don't reveal Wuxi's existence." Fairy Yaoxian stared deeply at him, holding back countless questions in her heart, but ultimately did not ask. She turned to leave. With that turn, thousands of years passed. Thousands of years later, fallen leaves filled the courtyard. Fairy Yaoxian returned, while Guwen still sat there, admiring the stone. Shenzhen saw Fairy Yaoxian return and immediately got up to leave. Fairy Yaoxian came before Guwen and said, "That Emperor of Eternal Life looks exactly like him, even his temperament, but I can be sure he is not him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 927. Slaughtering all Wuxia. Hearing Fairy Yaoxian's words, Guwen looked up at her and asked with a smile, "Then what do you think it means to be him?" He was not surprised at Fairy Yaoxian's confusion, for when he inherited the memories of the second life of the Emperor of Eternal Life, he saw Fairy Yaoxian had come to find him. In the memories, Fairy Yaoxian traveled a long distance to listen to him lecturing with other cultivators, and after the lecture, she sought him out. She did not express any feelings, but rather asked some questions, and then left calmly. Now, the person known across Central Heaven as the Emperor of Eternal Life is indeed Guwen, merely the Guwen in the lifespan reincarnation. Once the lifespan reincarnation ends, the life of the Emperor of Eternal Life begins. As long as Guwen does not appear before the Emperor of Eternal Life, this reincarnated life will become true. Fairy Yaoxian looked at Guwen but did not answer. Only her eyes showed some lingering resentment. Guwen tossed the stone in his hand to her and said, "This stone is one of the original stones of Central Heaven, containing the true essence of the heavenly Tao. By scrutinizing it, you may realize the wonders of the great Tao creating the universe and the world. Perhaps you can find the essence of your own existence through it." Fairy Yaoxian looked at the stone in her hand, her brows furrowed. This stone looks so ordinary. Can it truly help comprehend the heavenly Tao? Guwen stood up and said with a smile, "The Emperor of Eternal Life you desire is in your heart. Is that not enough? Originally, you did not live for someone. You also have your own Tao-seeking goals, do you not?" Having said that, Guwen stepped forward, brushing past her shoulder. Fairy Yaoxian lowered her head, and after Guwen walked out of the courtyard, She clenched the stone tightly in her hand and turned to leave. The Emperor of Eternal Life is renowned throughout the world, his prestige immense, but to central heaven, he is not yet the most dazzling existence. As Guwen walked down the mountain road, he could hear the name most frequently mentioned by the beings on the continent. A dragon. Dragon Emperor. This was the first dragon born in central heaven, born full with the Tai-Ching golden immortal realm perfection. Its dragon might vast, causing countless races to feel instinctive fear. This dragon also has an associated magical treasure, a dragon spear. Having been born for less than 10,000 years, it crossed into the heaven-opening Daluo immortal realm, achieving Miaojin Daluo immortal in less than 100,000 years. Compared to Central Heaven's history, it is still very young, but it has already ranked among the top in the world. The Dragon Emperor is very arrogant, having already declared he will become the strongest in Central Heaven. He will challenge each dojo in the world to prove himself. The news spread across the world, reaching this continent as well. Guwen, however, is not interested in the Dragon Emperor, for the future of the Dragon Emperor is already within his sight. The Dragon Emperor is destined to yield under the Celestial Court. After ranking in the immortal class, the Dragon Emperor will lose his brilliance, just like those immortal gods, forever a puppet of the heavenly Tao rules, forced to endure even when his descendants are slaughtered. Central Heaven, a land of heroes, Guwen finds it quite amusing, as if watching a series of films. Though he will not partake in worldly conflicts, should outsiders attempt to destroy the Wuxia continent, he would strike, for should the disciples be forced to take action, they would undoubtedly expose their cultivation level. In these circumstances, the continent gradually spread tales of immortals, with the mountain of no end shrouded in immortal mist, preventing outsiders from entering. Unconsciously, rumors arose saying an immortal mountain, inhabited by immortals, concealed within the mist. The Wuxia disciples discovered the ancestor protecting the continent, making them more relaxed, for as the central heaven spirits grew stronger, they also feared strong enemies invading, forcing them to reveal their true cultivation. With the ancestors' protection, they can exert themselves without worry. Some disciples even started crafting legends of the ancestor. No one dared mention the name of ancestor Master Wuxia, but stories of immortals based on his experiences spread widely across the continent. To date, 3/10 of the disciples have left the continent, and most disciples left of their own will. Guwen saw some Wuxia disciples establishing schools, successfully gaining a foothold in Central Heaven. It's worth noting that despite Central Heaven's development to this day, no native being has ascended to immortality, and there will be an even greater conflict in the future. Though the supreme demon god has cast a shadow over Central Heaven, the destruction he brought was not much. The human race flourished despite his ferocity, without any powerful force treating the world as a chessboard for conflict. Tao Emperor, are you finally unable to hold back? Guwen muttered to himself, a smile of anticipation appearing on his face. Amidst the vast immortal mist stood a towering peak. At its summit lay a courtyard, where Wuxia, dressed in black, was practicing before a great cauldron. Inside the cauldron were 3 large incense sticks, from which blue smoke rose, swirling above the courtyard. Wuxia frowned deeply. A faint golden pattern appeared on his forehead, and his mana began to escape, with a Dharma aspect manifesting. The Dharma aspect bore a domineering demeanor, radiating an unrivaled aura. Suddenly, a figure appeared next to Wuxia seemingly out of nowhere, placing a hand on his shoulder. Wuxia opened his eyes sharply, the Dharma aspect on his body dissipating instantly. He turned to see Nzazai standing beside him, and his brows relaxed. Nzazai frowned at him and said, "Demonic possession? Your aura just now almost disturbed the continent. Nowadays, the continent is no longer occupied solely by the Wuxia disciples. Although the Mountain of No End has become an immortal name, should there be truly overwhelming aura spreading out, it would certainly invite trouble." Wuxia's eyes flashed with confusion, and he couldn't help but ask, "Did I lose control just now? Didn't you notice?" "No, I thought I was in enlightenment. My consciousness had entered the great Tao. It seems your enlightenment took a wrong path," And Zizai said seriously. In terms of cultivation level, he was currently slightly weaker than Wuxia, but if it came to a fight to the death, he had absolute confidence to defeat Wuxia. Wuxia also thought the same of him, so Wuxia always listened earnestly to his opinions. Wuxia looked up at Zizai and asked, "Ancestor, can you tell me what happened to me just now?" And Zizai did not conceal anything, explaining everything he saw. After listening, Wuxia raised his hand to touch his forehead, his heart full of doubt. And Zizai looked at him, also feeling a sense of amazement. The ancestor once said that Wuxia hid even greater cause and effect. What could it possibly be? Though Zizai was curious, he did not inquire, for he was powerless to address it. He hoped Wuxia would find the root by himself. How can a person of great power not understand themselves? Wuxia turned back, closed his eyes, and pondered carefully, while Zizai quietly guarded by his side. Soon Wuxia's mind again immersed into the great Tao. His mana once more uncontrolledly overflowed, and a mysterious Dharma aspect began to manifest. And Zizai watched this Dharma aspect, his eyes full of vigilance. This Dharma aspect's form was unlike Wuxia's. He was puzzled in secret. Who is this? Seeing Wuxia's aura grow stronger, and Zizai had to act again, waking Wuxia. As soon as Wuxia opened his eyes, he showed a look of terror. He looked up at Zizai and said with a trembling voice, "Ancestor, I seem to have caused trouble. He is coming to find me and wants to slaughter all of Wuxia. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 928. Heaven Sent Providence. Who? So arrogant? And Zizai's face suddenly turned gloomy, for someone dared to threaten Wuxia, which was the greatest insult to him. Who dared to boast they would slaughter all of Wuxia? In his heart there was no fear, only anger. Wuxia tried hard to calm himself, recalling he said, "I also don't know who he is. He is a Taoist emperor. He forced me to accept his power. I felt something was amiss and refused. Afterwards, he threatened me, saying he would come to me himself, to annihilate those of the same path as me." Those of the same path made Wuxia think it referred to fellow disciples of Wuxia. And Zizai pondered for a moment and said, "Come with me, we will go see the ancestor." Upon hearing this, Wuxia was about to speak but stopped himself. Though he seldom communicated with the ancestor, what he cared about most was the ancestor's opinion of him. And Zizai said solemnly, "This matter is no longer just about you. It's trouble for the entire Wuxia. Don't delay important matters for the sake of saving face." After hearing this, Wuxia immediately stood up and took a deep breath. Thus, the two left the mountain peak, heading to the mountain of no end to find Gu and Fre Webnov. L.C. OM. However, Guin was not at the mountain of no end, so they could only wait for his return outside the courtyard. They waited for several days. When Guin returned, and Zizai was the first to welcome him. "Don't worry, you continue cultivating. I will personally handle the trouble for Wuxia," Guin said with a smile, leaving Zizai slightly stunned. Before Zizai could respond, Guin stepped forward and entered the courtyard. Wuxia watched Guin walk past him, instinctively opening his mouth. "Ancestor, that person is a Taoist." He hadn't finished speaking when he saw Guin raise his hand, signaling him to stop speaking. He could only pause, staring blankly as Guin entered the courtyard. Once Guin's figure disappeared from their sight, Wuxia turned his head to look at Zizai, his face full of bafflement. And Zizai, however, smiled and said, "Then continue cultivating. This shows that all the cause and effect of that person is within the ancestor's view." Saying this, and Zizai's eyes were filled with expectation. He wanted to see the scene where that arrogant person knelt before the ancestor to beg for mercy. Wuxia had always known the ancestor was strong, but exactly how strong he wasn't sure. Yet the feeling the mysterious Taoist emperor gave him sent chills through him. With his current cultivation level facing that Taoist emperor, he couldn't muster any resistance, as if he was confronting the great Tao itself. Is it really okay? Wuxia thought anxiously, frowning deeply. And Zizai didn't say much to comfort Wuxia. He just patted Wuxia's shoulder and turned to leave. Wuxia looked back at the courtyard. The pavilion belonging to the ancestor had its doors and windows all closed. He could only suppress the unease in his heart and leave as well. In the years that followed, Wuxia found that he no longer encountered that Taoist emperor, and his enlightenment returned to its former smooth and tranquil state. He suspected it was the ancestor's doing, allowing him to completely let go of his inner unease and focus on cultivation. Rather than relying on the ancestor's protection, he more wished to be the one who protected Wuxia. The sky was filled with red clouds. A large river spanned across the wilderness, dividing the land in two. The river's waters surged and roared, stirring up rows of splashes on both banks. Magnificently grand, the momentum overwhelming. On one of the riverbanks, Li Ye and Martial Resolution sat drinking together, with a small table between them laden with cakes and fruits, very exquisite. Having finished a cup of wine, Martial Resolution praised, "Brother Li, I didn't expect you to have such elegance. At our cultivation level, we have long practiced fasting. Few people are like you, preparing wine and snacks." Leah laughed and replied, "I learned it from junior brother Gu. No matter how high his cultivation, wherever he goes, he always has the leisure to enjoy everything, appreciating the world with a mortal's perspective. I find it quite right. After all, we are all mortal, that's our starting point." Speaking of Gu and Martial Resolution also felt deeply, sighing, "I wonder where brother Gu is now. Don't worry, with Central Heaven's development trend, he will surely come eventually. With his kind of personality, he seems not to like being in the limelight, but in reality, he loves to be part of the excitement," Leah said with a chuckle. Meeting Martial Resolution in Central Heaven brought him both surprise and deep emotions. Without Gu and perhaps neither he nor Martial Resolution would have reached here. Although he wasn't clear on how Martial Resolution came here, intuition told him it certainly had something to do with Gu, and Martial Resolution shared the same thought. Both pervaded with confidence, but they wouldn't deny Gu's significance to them. The distance between Central Heaven and the celestial spirit great world was incredibly vast. The two hadn't seen each other for hundreds of millions of years, yet reuniting here, the fate brought new sensations to their Tao hearts. After discussing Gu and Martial Resolution mentioned a major event happening in the world today, curiously asking, "That Xuanji Emperor challenges the Dragon Emperor and wants to propagate the Primordial Tao Emperor. What do you think? What are his chances?" The Primordial Tao Emperor is a kind of great Tao destiny, influenced by Gu and which Martial Resolution and Leah unintentionally embarked upon. They never associated the Primordial Tao Emperor with Gu, and because the Primordial Tao Emperor was so profound, akin to the immortal position of the immortal gods, as if it was the great Tao itself naturally existing. Leah restrained his smile, contemplating seriously, and said, "I've met both the Dragon Emperor and the Xuanji Emperor. Although the Dragon Emperor's talent is daunting, I feel Xuanji Emperor has a higher chance of winning. After all, that guy once traversed the path of the great Tao, leaving behind a great reputation in the 3,000 great worlds, his battle experience incomparable to the Dragon Emperor." Martial Resolution nodded and said, "I also hope he can win. If the Primordial Tao Emperor spreads in Central Heaven, it will be beneficial to your and my cultivation. The Primordial Tao Emperor is a kind of great Tao destiny. The more cultivators, the stronger they are, the stronger it becomes, and the more it helps the cultivators in return. The Primordial Tao Emperor can aid them in better enlightenment, making it an important support in their cultivation, both holding great anticipation for it." Just then, a flake of golden snow descended from the sky, landing between them. They looked up, discovering a sky filled with red clouds was snowing a golden snow. The golden snow fell on the table, transforming into golden chi and dissipating, soundlessly. Martial Resolution raised an eyebrow. "This snow is extraordinary. Did you feel it?" Leah squinted at the tabletop, where the golden chi left no traces, pondering. "It contains the spiritual energy of the Tao origin. It's a great fortune." Both immediately sat cross-legged, beginning to cultivate energy and perceive it. This golden snow fell increasingly heavily, covering all Central Heaven, with its scope expanding and growing denser. Inch Island. Xuanwu meditated alone on the beach, looking up to feel the golden snow, murmuring, "Could it be another prodigy is born?" Throughout the endless years, celestial phenomena emerged one after another, some terrifying to all beings, some bestowing opportunities upon them, making him accustomed to such events. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 929. Transcending the heavenly Tao. The golden snow fell for 7 days and 7 nights. Upon landing, it transformed into mist and dissipated without a trace. No water, no other marks, and the earth remained unchanged, but all living beings between heaven and earth were blessed by its grace. Some beings, through this opportunity, broke through the bottlenecks in their realms that had been stagnant for so long. Some were severely injured, on the brink of death, and were saved by this golden snow. Many others gained insights to create cultivation techniques and divine skills. The myriad creations surging forth in the world made all living beings rejoice, and they were filled with gratitude toward the creator of this miracle. In central heaven, every being bathed in the golden snow knew a name: True Yuan Ancestor. This true Yuan Ancestor did not call out to all living beings, yet this name emerged in their hearts, and they could even glimpse his blurred silhouette. Because of this miracle, the true Yuan Ancestor instantly became the supreme great power in the hearts of all beings, for throughout history, no great power has ever bestowed such a miracle on all living beings. The vast majority of beings believe true Yuan Ancestor to be either an immortal god descending to earth or an outer heaven great power arriving. Central heaven could actually nurture such a great power, indeed a talent of primordial, profound, venerable, immortal quality. Guan rested under a tree, a leaf covering his face, whispering softly. He was alone in this grove, unafraid of being overheard. This true Yuan Ancestor is a newly born being of central heaven, and this miracle was bestowed in celebration of his birth, also letting all beings know of his existence and power. True Yuan Ancestor was born as a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, surpassing all beings in talent. He carried a mission, upholding the will of heaven and earth, and Guan could see a trace of the celestial emperor's will surrounding him. He did not have such talent because of the celestial emperor. Rather, it was his extraordinary talent that attracted the celestial emperor's attention. The celestial emperor was still in a state of reincarnation but could sense any changes in the heavenly Tao if they occurred. Guan lay under the tree, enjoying the quiet environment while observing this true Yuan Ancestor. Due to the celestial emperor's attention, the fate of the true Yuan Ancestor was constantly changing, with various destinies, some good and some bad. Finally, the celestial emperor's indecisive mind was settled, but unfortunately, what was decided for the true Yuan Ancestor was not a path of enlightenment, but a path of abandonment. Guan felt sympathy for the true Yuan Ancestor, but with no personal ties, he would not help him. He pondered the relationship between the celestial emperor and the heavenly Tao, wondering if the celestial emperor had never become a saint because of too deep an obsession. The celestial emperor's desire to control the myriad things of the heavenly Tao was exceedingly strong. Although he seemed to be above all, distant from all beings, in reality, the fate of all beings lay in his hands. Even though Guan had attained sainthood, he found that the holy Tao was not fixed. During the growth of his lifespan, he contemplated the different paths to sainthood. Even as a saint, he could not help others achieve sainthood. The primordial Tai true saint transcends even the great Tao. Every saint is equivalent to an entirely new great Tao, a stronger great Tao. Observing the path to sainthood is about observing how to create the great Tao. True Yuan Ancestor is the greatest talent in the history of central heaven, but the future may not be so. Guan watched true Yuan Ancestor, peering into the myriad things of all beings, seeing things even the celestial emperor could not see. The heavenly Tao creates heavens and earth. Heavens and earth create living beings, and among these beings hides a power that surpasses the heavenly Tao. This is a very deep force, not cause and effect or destiny, but an enigmatic power. This profound power gives all beings the hope to transcend the heavenly Tao. Guan immersed himself, entering the consciousness of the heavenly Tao. To him, the heavenly Tao now posed no obstacle. He could enter the heavenly Tao itself, see everything within it, and even access every corner of the heavenly Tao. In the valley, long willows with pink petals swayed in the wind, countless petals danced, and colorful butterflies circled. A stream ran through the valley, and beside it stood a white-haired elder in golden clothes, tall and with an ethereal aura. He gazed at his reflection in the water, brows furrowed. He was the true Yuan ancestor that all beings remembered. At this moment, the true Yuan ancestor had just taken his first step 7 days ago. He looked at his face, contemplating the meaning of his existence. Heavenly Tao, heaven and earth, immortal. His eyes flickered as he muttered softly as if asking himself. In these 7 days, he had consolidated his cultivation level, becoming a true heaven-opening Daluo immortal, but he had received many memories in his mind as if they were innate. He was born with a mission, but he felt a deep resistance to this mission from within. He was filled with curiosity about heaven and earth, and this curiosity broke through all shackles. He understood what a Daluo immortal was, and precisely because of this, he could not accept having any mission, seeing it as a form of bondage. Is it truly my own thoughts, or has heaven and earth, even the heavenly Tao, imposed them upon me? These words of the true Yuan ancestor were not spoken aloud. He felt that doing so would bring trouble. For some reason, from the moment he first opened his eyes, although he was curious about heaven and earth, there was also a deep-seated vigilance. He felt the presence of countless atmospheres on earth, but none were the same as his own, none felt akin. He even wanted to obliterate those atmospheres because they caused him discomfort. After much thought, true Yuan ancestor turned and walked out of the valley. He walked slowly, contemplating every step. True Yuan ancestor bestowed Fuyuan upon all beings, yet they did not know of his resistance toward them. In the years that followed, those grateful to him continually sang his praises, revered him like a god, and he heard these remarks while among the world, but he took no joy in them, becoming more vigilant instead. He always felt as if everything he saw and heard was guiding him. There was a certain force wishing for him to be grateful and compassionate toward those weaker atmospheres, a certain will wanting to determine his thoughts, which made him increasingly uncomfortable. His pace began to quicken, interacting with no other being, as if fleeing from a celestial net. Thousands of years later, he arrived at the ocean. The beings atop the ocean were many, but there were few distractions, bringing him a bit of comfort. Though he was comforted, Guan was not. On Inch Island, Guan sat fishing on a rocky outcrop, accompanied by Xuanwu, looking at the sea, a sense of helplessness in his heart. Why was this fellow flying toward him? True Yuan ancestors' inclinations confirmed Guan's suspicions, that all heavenly Tao creatures possess the power to break free from the heavenly Tao, but this power is challenging to lead forth. Though merely a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, true Yuan ancestor could perceive the celestial emperor's will. Such an instinct was more fearsome than his talent. When true Yuan ancestor resisted the celestial emperor's will, his fate became blurred, his destiny branched, forming countless paths and extending infinitely. At this rate, true Yuan ancestor will eventually become an existence intolerable to the heavenly Tao. He will either transcend the heavenly Tao or face boundless calamity. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 930. True Yuan ancestors' trial. The summer sun blazed down upon the mountain peak and shrouded in immortal mist. Wuxia stood at the cliff's edge, brow furrowed, his gaze piercing the clouds to look beyond the heavens. Ever since being threatened by that mysterious Taoist emperor, despite the assistance of his ancestors allowing him to cultivate at ease, the matter lingered in his heart. Today he had a strong intuition. That Taoist emperor was coming. The person was descending from the outer heaven of central heaven. An ascender can only appear for the first time within the world itself. Beings coming from outside the world are invariably powerful, capable of conversing with the celestial court as unparalleled great powers. Wuxia pondered how the person would descend. Would they arrive quietly on the Wuxishi continent, or come with heavenly might, alarming the all-living beings under heaven. If it were the latter, Wuxia might have a hard time remaining hidden, which was not something Wuxia wished to see. Arriving at Central Heaven, although Wuxia did not venture out, he could sense the fortune of Central Heaven. Coupled with the many stories he had heard, he did not wish to be forced to leave before he truly understood Central Heaven firsthand. Wuxia stood on the cliff, lost in thought, the golden lines on his forehead faintly visible, making him appear quite mystical. Freeway novel. Calm at the same time, the Wuxia continent welcomed an old acquaintance of Gu and none other than Martial Resolution. Martial Resolution had come to the Wuxia continent by chance. Upon hearing that there were immortals there, he wanted to visit them. Ever since the supreme demon god was exterminated, after witnessing the massacre of the human race, Martial Resolution felt that perhaps the events he saw concealed a greater conspiracy. Why did the immortal gods above not deal with the supreme demon god earlier, but only act after the human race flourished? And the supreme demon god, acting in such an evil manner, knowing that the immortal gods observed humanity, yet remained so ostentatious. Why was the Son of Heaven the one to deal with the supreme demon god? Coming from the 3,000 great worlds, Martial Resolution was well aware of the struggle for the title of Son of Heaven, so the appearance of Emperor Taihao made him very sensitive. He could not understand, so he simply chose not to think about it. He did not want to get involved in worldly matters again, only wanting to pursue the Tao. He had traveled through Central Heaven, visiting many immortals and enlightened beings, benefiting immensely, and he thoroughly enjoyed this journey. As he took his first step onto the Middle Heaven continent, a look of disappointment showed on Martial Resolution's face. The spiritual energy on this continent was somewhat low, and even if there were immortals, their Tao practices were likely not very high. However, since he was here, Martial Resolution would not turn back. Even witnessing the local customs and people here was worthwhile. He proceeded along the mountain path, with an endless ocean behind him and majestic mountains stretching ahead. As he walked, he scanned the area with his divine sense. He was surprised to discover that the cultivation levels of the beings here were generally lower than outside, yet he did not regard this continent with disdain. Rather, it piqued his curiosity even more. Despite the generally weaker beings, they managed to live in harmony, which was not commonly seen. In Central Heaven, the law of the jungle was prevalent, so why hadn't stronger beings come to occupy this land? Although Central Heaven was vast, as more powerful beings arose, the land without a master naturally became scarce. At this moment, Martial Resolution seemed to sense something, instinctively turning to see a black-robed man appear on the hill behind him. This black-robed man, with disheveled hair, resembled a ghost. He was barefoot, holding a bone staff in his right hand, embodying darkness itself. Merely standing there sent chills of terror through Martial Resolution. Now close to the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, even Martial Resolution felt his hackles rise when faced with this person. Martial Resolution frowned, subconsciously wanting to inquire of the other person. But the black-robed man took a step forward, directly crossing over to stand in front of Martial Resolution. The two were less than 20 centimeters apart. Their eyes meeting, Martial Resolution's pupils dilated abruptly, and he instinctively wanted to step back. Yet he was enveloped by an unimaginable sense of oppression, unable to move. Martial Resolution saw the icy killing intent in the other's eyes. Primordial Tao Emperor? Foolish, but your cause and effect are not simple. For now I'll spare you. Get lost, or you will be buried along with the all-living beings of this continent. The black-robed man said coldly. As the words fell, Martial Resolution breathed a sigh of relief, stumbling back a few steps. Fear etched upon his face. The black-robed man snorted coldly, turning into a black wind that swept past Martial Resolution. Martial Resolution instinctively turned to look, only able to see him disappear into the distant forest, unable to trace his movements. Buried? Martial Resolution recalled the man's words, his heart pounding in terror. Judging from the suppression earlier, he was by no means a match for this person. He had no cause and effect with the creatures of this continent and naturally would not be buried for them. All he felt was a sigh in his heart. Such a harmonious land was about to be destroyed. Indeed, every place in Central Heaven was filled with savagery and killing intent. Martial Resolution stopped thinking about it, leaping into the air towards the distance. At the same time, in the forest, the black-robed man's neck was held by a hand, raised high, both his hands clutching that hand, a look of fear and despair on his face, entirely different from when he faced Guwen earlier. Who exactly are you? The black-robed man asked with a trembling voice. Facing the person before him, he had no power to resist. The other appeared so quickly that he was captured before he could react. Guwen held the black-robed man, an amused smile on his face as if discovering an interesting toy. He was too lazy to converse with the black-robed man, directly snapping his neck. Crack! The black-robed man's eyes bulged, and then he quickly shrank, falling into Guwen's hand, transforming into a crooked-necked wooden figurine clad in black clothes, resembling a puppet. Guwen hung this wooden figure on his belt, then turned to leave. As for Martial Resolution's departure, Guwen felt no regret. He did not want to meet Martial Resolution just yet. Since the supreme demon god was exterminated, Martial Resolution's mood had remained heavy, and amid such emotions, his limit on lifespan continued to increase, with his future Tao practice limit also rapidly rising. This was Martial Resolution's own fortune. Before he walked out of it himself, Guwen would not meet him. After taking 7 steps, Guwen arrived at Inch Island. He stood on the cliff of Inch Island, his gaze fixed on the distant ocean. Under his watch, rolling thunderclouds gathered over the ocean, as if a storm was imminent. He smiled, tossing the wooden figure hanging from his waist lightly in that direction. I give you a test to see if you can pass through him. Guwen murmured softly. He spoke of the true Yuan ancestor. The true Yuan ancestor had come because he felt that the heavenly Tao suppression was weak here at Inch Mountain, which would undoubtedly bring some trouble to Inch Island. However, a meeting of fate was at hand, and Guwen was willing to give him a chance. This black-robed man was no simpleton. He was a genuine Tao Extreme Daluo Immortal, also a Taoist emperor. He was a servant of the creator of the Taoist emperor, here to force out Guwen, trying to expose Guwen to the celestial Tao immortal gods. Unfortunately, this creator had underestimated Guwen's Tao practice. As for why he did not dare to show himself, it was because he too feared the celestial court. The heavenly Tao did not allow him. The true Yuan ancestor was merely a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, by no means a match for the Tao Extreme Daluo immortal, so Guwen had laid some plans to force that creator to show himself. Guwen could directly find that creator, but he hoped even more that the creator would walk before him, to perish in shock and despair, the price for scheming against him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report, so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 931. Taichi Emperor in the midst of the storm. The true Yuan ancestor walked forward through the air, his white hair flowing in the wind, golden clothes fluttering, his expression resolute, staring straight ahead. His gaze suddenly fell towards the west. Following his gaze, amidst the raging waves, there was a small island standing quietly, regardless of how fierce the surrounding waves were. This island was never inundated. He hesitated for a moment, then flew towards that small island. He didn't deliberately fly into the sea region, but encountered sudden changes in the weather along his way. At first, he didn't pay attention, but later he couldn't fly out of this sea region, realizing that he might have inadvertently entered a forbidden area set by the rules of heaven and earth. There are many such forbidden areas, created by the rules, causing creatures to lose direction, or to sink into decadence and rot, with effects that vary. Having traveled extensively, the true Yuan ancestor remained calm, believing he could break through with his abilities. However, reality was not what he expected. After a long time without being able to break free, the true Yuan ancestor became cautious. Now, finally seeing an island, he had to investigate, perhaps the exit lay on the island. He quickly flew onto the island, hovering in the air, frowning as he inspected, soon drawn to a particular spot on the island. He raised his right hand, commanding from a distance. A wooden figure swiftly flew to him. He didn't touch it, keeping a distance of 20 centimeters from his palm. He furrowed his brows, carefully examining the wooden figure. Across the entire island, only this wooden figure emitted life energy, making him very uncomfortable. His intuition told him that the formation of this forbidden area was related to the wooden figure before him. He probed the wooden figure with his divine sense, and his expression changed dramatically, immediately releasing the figure, letting it drop. Watching the figure fall into the forest below, he tightly frowned. He turned and flew into the distance, afterward exerting all his strength, flying in various directions. Yet he couldn't escape the sea domain. He couldn't even expel the storm clouds, as if trapped in a boundless world of torrential rain, without a way out. Several hours later, the true Yuan ancestor returned to the island, entering the forest, found the wooden figure fallen among the grass. His eyes became resolute, deciding to release the terrifying presence within the wooden figure. Born as a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, he had never fought before. He disliked fighting because since birth, he wanted to destroy the energies that displeased him, fearing submission to such instincts. But now, perhaps it was time to test his power, to break barriers with his strength. He still had untapped greater power. The true Yuan ancestor cast a spell on the wooden figure, smashing it instantly. A surge of black fog erupted, swiftly engulfing the entire forest. Amid the dazzling and strange chaos void, a vast star cloud concealed countless realms. These realms appeared like continents, surrounded by various lights, as if stones encased in bubbles. Above these realms, a piece of curved wood pierced through the star cloud, and on the curved wood stood a figure. This was a man dressed in a dark red robe, his features youthful and handsome, hair black and white intertwined, loosely draped, surrounded by multicolored streams of air, causing his robes to gently flutter. He sat on the curved wood, body leaning against a small table, one hand supporting his cheek, posture lazy. He slowly opened his eyes, his gaze emitted brilliant light, akin to two appearing suns, brightening the entire void. That feeling again, unable to deduce, what divine presence are you? F. Re. E. W. E. B. N. O. V. L. C. O.M. The man in the red robe murmured, his tone bewildered. He was the presence referred to as the Creation Tao Emperor with the Tao name Taichi. Taichi Emperor was born from the heavenly Tao, forced into chaos due to some special reasons. He left behind his great Tao destiny in the heavenly Tao, rooting and sprouting as more cultivators emerged, with his own Tao practice also strengthening. Until one day he noticed the growth speed of his Tao practice slowing. Through deduction, he discovered a new great Tao destiny emerging within the heavenly Tao, known as Primordial Tao Emperor, puzzling him. Didn't the Celestial Emperor promise only a single great Tao destiny would exist? Due to apprehension about the Celestial Emperor, he could only secretly observe Primordial Tao Emperor. Later, he understood why the Celestial Court allowed Primordial Tao Emperor's existence. Unlike his great Tao Emperor, which strengthened through slaughter and mutual devouring of destiny, his great Tao destiny was utilitarian and aggressive, but Primordial Tao Emperor was purer, not threatening any destiny, compatible with other great Tao destinies. When he saw a great Tao Emperor concurrently cultivating Primordial Tao Emperor, he realized Primordial Tao Emperor was different. Previously, attempts to concurrently cultivate different great Tao destinies failed, with the severe cases falling into demonic possession, dying violently. Due to Primordial Tao Emperor's uniqueness, the great Tao Emperor was fearful. What kind of existence could create such a great Tao destiny? What was its purpose? When some great Tao Emperors began doubting, thinking great Tao Emperor might be inferior to Primordial Tao Emperor, he understood the ambition behind it. He felt he couldn't sit idly by. He dispatched his servant, the Black Desire Emperor, appearing confident but secretly considering Black Desire Emperor as expendable. He hoped to force the existence to reveal itself with Black Desire Emperor's strength. Over countless years, he used the destiny created through great Tao Destiny Emperors to infiltrate the cause and effect of Primordial Tao Emperor, investing years into it. Taichi Emperor's gaze turned to the heavenly Tao, reflecting the scene of central heaven in his pupils. He was certain that the source of primordial Tao Emperor's cause and effect was in central heaven, and the disappearance of the Black Desire Emperor for a while, followed by its reappearance days later, puzzled him. Why didn't the opponent eliminate the Black Desire Emperor? Wasn't Black Desire Emperor strong enough to provoke the opponent? The Black Desire Emperor was Tao Extreme Daluo Immortal. Defeated silently wouldn't be easy. Most puzzling was, why did the Celestial Emperor indulge such a strong presence? He could discern that Primordial Tao Emperor and the Heavenly Tao were unrelated, definitely not the Celestial Emperor's scheme. Despite the mystery, he wouldn't report to the Celestial Emperor, for he not only sought to destroy Primordial Tao Emperor but also the Celestial Court, where the key lay in eliminating the Celestial Emperor. How powerful was the Celestial Emperor? Taichi Emperor lurked within chaos, waiting for an opportunity. As Taichi Emperor pondered, his expression subtly changed. That aura, could it be? Taichi Emperor showed joy, even suddenly stood up. He sensed the aura of Black Desire Emperor fighting. The joy wasn't for Black Desire Emperor, but the heavenly Tao creature confronting him. Such cause and effect, such aura, surely the variable he had always awaited. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 932. The heavenly horse descends. The sun was bright, and the waves continuously crashed onto the beach, sending up rows of white spray. Xuanwu stood on the beach, gazing at the distant thunderclouds, his brow furrowed, eyes filled with worry. Those thunderclouds had appeared years ago and never dispersed, making him increasingly concerned. He had asked Guwen, but Guwen just told him not to worry. Stop staring at it. Just focus on your cultivation. Guwen's voice came, startling Xuanwu into quickly withdrawing his gaze and turning to leave. He hated cultivation the most, but he dared not defy his master's orders. For you. No, Vel. Guwen, who was painting in the courtyard, felt rather helpless about Xuanwu's mindset. Unlike the deep-sea dragon carp, Xuanwu had no desire to become strong. In Xuanwu's heart, striving for strength had no meaning. He preferred sleeping. The challenge with Lu and before was also forced by Gu and Gu and hoped they could motivate each other. But it failed. After Lu and left, Xuanwu frequently slacked off to sleep. Even when the true Yuan ancestor and the Black Desire Emperor fought nearby, it failed to ignite a diligent spirit in Xuanwu. Though Guwen was helpless, he wasn't angry. Everyone has choices, and Xuanwu could make his own. He was painting a scene of the battle between the true Yuan ancestor and the Black Desire Emperor. The Black Desire Emperor looked fierce, while the true Yuan ancestor's back was as steady as Mount Tai. He suppressed the cultivation level of the Black Desire Emperor. As the true Yuan ancestor grew stronger, the restrictions on the Black Desire Emperor weakened, so the battle was very intense, with both sides going all out. The reason he painted here was to wait for another presence. The Taichi Emperor of the Creation Tao Emperor. He had already seen all the causes and effects of the Taichi Emperor, knew everything about him, and knew that the Taichi Emperor would soon descend, ready to capture the true Yuan ancestor. Guwen painted while watching the battle, feeling quite leisurely. He now increasingly understood the feelings of the Celestial Emperor. But unlike the Celestial Emperor, he had no such strong desire for control. Even towards his disciples, he never forced them to stay by his side, nor cared for the so-called power. Whinny. Suddenly, a loud whinny echoed across the sky, causing Xuanwu, who was dragging himself towards his cultivation site, to look up. Immediately, his eyes widened as he saw a glorious golden rainbow appear on the distant horizon. On that golden rainbow galloped a magnificent, large white horse. This horse also had a pair of dragon horns on its head, clearly having reached the Taichin golden immortal realm, its aura surpassing all creatures in the world, giving him an indescribable sacred feeling, making him have the urge to worship. Guwen also looked up and saw a figure standing on the head of that white horse, exuding the aura of an immortal god. This reminded Guwen of ancient myths, where the offspring of immortal gods would descend to the lower realm to frolic wantonly, without ill intentions yet bringing disaster to the human world. This immortal god's figure was the offspring of a supreme immortal, riding a heavenly horse from the celestial court, wanting to see the legendary central heaven. The blatantness of this immortal indicated that the celestial court's restrictions on entering and exiting central heaven were beginning to relax, forecasting that more immortal gods would descend in the future, making immortal gods no longer just mythical to the living beings. Xuanwu hurried up the mountain to Gu En's side, asking nervously, "Master, what is the origin of that horse?" The heavenly horse had already galloped into the distance, not heading toward Inch Island. As for the sea area where the true Yuan ancestor and Black Desire Emperor battled, Gu En had obscured its causes and effects, allowing only the Taichi Emperor to feel it. A heavenly horse from the celestial court. Many breeds exist. This one is a warhorse for battling evil demons, capable of trampling you to death with one hoof. Your turtle shell wouldn't withstand it, Gu En said softly, and at the end, he glanced at Xuanwu with a teasing look. Xuanwu tensed up in fright and asked further, "Master, you are so powerful and know so much about immortal gods. Could you be an immortal god from the heavens?" "I am not." "Why not? Why should I be? Is being an immortal god very good?" Gu En looked at Xuanwu, asking curiously. Xuanwu felt restless under his gaze, but seeing that it wasn't a scold, he bravely said, "All living beings cultivate immortality to become immortals. Only by being an immortal god can we know why we should become one." Gu En chuckled, asking, "Do you want to ascend to immortality?" "Of course I want to. I also want to see the celestial court. If life there is too tense, I can leave," Xuanwu said with a longing expression. "The celestial court is not a place you can come and go as you please, and immortal gods may not be as carefree as you imagine." Gu En shook his head, smiling wryly. However, he was also curious about the immortal gods. Even though he could see their lives, he contemplated whether he should try it himself. "Where is absolute freedom?" Xuanwu sighed, his eyes showing a hint of resentment. Gu En found it reasonable, nodding. "In that case, why don't you quickly go cultivate?" His face turned stern, scaring Xuanwu into a shiver, who quickly turned around and ran off. "Immortal gods. I wonder if they are interesting." Gu En mumbled to himself, redirecting his gaze to the paper before him. He removed the painted paper and replaced it with a new sheet of white paper, preparing to paint the heavenly horse from earlier. "Could someone like me also ascend to immortality?" Leah kneeled on the ground, looking at the white-haired ancestor meditating under the tree in front, asking in shock. This was the dojo of the white-haired ancestor. Upon Martial Resolution's recommendation, Leah came to seek immortal fate. The white-haired ancestor sat with a dignified posture, her face serene. She calmly gazed at Leah, saying, "You have accumulated merit over time, and the Taoist lineage you wish to create benefits the development of the heavenly Tao. So you possess the qualifications to ascend to immortality." Leah naturally wanted to ascend to immortality. It was for this reason that he came to Central Heaven, yet he didn't expect to encounter an opportunity with the immortal gods so soon, knowing that the white-haired ancestor before him was a bona fide immortal god. "But my cultivation level..." Leah suppressed his excitement, hesitantly asking. The white-haired ancestor replied, "Whether you can ascend to immortality, cultivation level is the least important. After ascending, you will naturally become stronger, surpassing all living beings." Leah's heart began to race, suddenly unsure of what to say next. However, the white-haired ancestor's tone shifted, and these words quickly disappointed Leah. "Indeed, ascending to immortality is not that easy," the white-haired ancestor said. "What you need to do now is continue your previous endeavors. Take in disciples, create your Taoist lineage, travel the world, establish merit, and one day, an immortal official will descend, personally find you, and take you to the celestial court." Immortal official? Lia's hope reignited once more. Just as he was about to inquire further, the white-haired ancestor closed her eyes and said, "Go, you should have already received the answer you sought." Hearing this, Leah gave her one last deep look, then respectfully bowed and stood up to leave. Turning towards the mouth of the valley, Li Ya's eyes were filled with anticipation and determination. This meeting at least confirmed the path he was to follow was the correct one. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible.